This is Atomic Shinobi, and today I'm going to narrate what if Naruto was trained by Urahara Kisuke. If you enjoy this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
Naruto Uzumaki was muttering to himself as he strolled through the streets. It took everything he had to control his temper after he was ejected from a gun store for the third time today. He needed to replenish his supplies after the wave mission, but nobody was willing to sell him anything. Ignoring the glares from the villagers, he thought to himself, how the hell am I going to become Hokage if no one will sell me anything? He was able to ignore the pain as he reflected on his previous mission because he was accustomed to it. He had learned a lot during his time at Wave. He had a very innocent perspective on shinobi when he first began his career as a genin. He believed that mastering some cool jutsu was all he needed to become Hokage, but he now had a better understanding of the shinobi world. The tears in Zabuza's eyes upon Haku's death demonstrated that, despite being regarded as weapons, shinobi are still human beings with feelings. Haku also taught him that genuine strength can arise from the desire to defend the people you care about. Naruto acknowledged that, but he felt a little depressed that only 4 individuals in the entire village fit his definition of a precious person. The only people who genuinely cared for him were the Ichiraku family and Iruka, the Hokage. He was unsure of Kakashi's classification. Even though he appeared to have loved him, Naruto could not fully comprehend him because he was still too mysterious. He had a crush on Sakura and would have loved to have her as one of his precious people, but she has never shown him any interest, which has hurt him. Sasuke was a mystery as well. At one point, he might be a haughty jerk who delighted in taunting him, but at another, he might offer himself as a sacrifice to save him. The orange-clad ninja fell after he bumped into the man in front of him, but he was too preoccupied to notice him. As Naruto got to his feet, a laughing voice remarked, "Oh my, you should really watch where you're going." He saw a tall, gray-eyed man with a cane in his hand when he turned to face the stranger. He had light, blonde, almost pale hair, with strands between his eyes and on the side framing his face. He was dressed in a black coat with white diamonds on the bottom half and a dark green shirt and pants underneath. His eyes were shaded by a bucket hat with stripes of dark green and white on top of his head. The man pulled out a fan to hide his smile and said, "I know I am quite the looker, but it is rude to stare, you know." Naruto blushed a little as he came out of his daze and then gave his head a sheepish scratch. The man laughed as he grinned and said, "Sorry about that, mister. Just never met anyone who wore so much green." Naruto pouted as he said, "I could very much say the same about you. You'd think it'd be illegal to wear that much orange." He crossed his arms and said, "Now that was uncalled for. Why does everyone have a problem with orange?" Naruto grinned as the man said, "No need to pout, kid. Orange is just a difficult color to pull off, but I have to say it works with you." He proudly said, "I guess an awesome color like orange only looks good on an awesome shinobi like me." This made the man laugh once more. As Naruto's eyes grew wide, he said, "Such a cheeky brat, I like it. Tell me, what's your name?" There was no trace of fear or hatred in the man's eyes or voice as he spoke to him in such a cordial manner. Naruto, who had recovered from his shock, pointed a thumb at his chest and smiled like a fox. He confidently said, "The name's Uzumaki Naruto, future Hokage." Then he held out his hand and said, "Uzumaki Naruto, huh? Well, I better remember the name of a future Hokage, right? I'm Urahara Kisuke." When Naruto saw this, he shook the man's extended hand with a smile. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Urahara." Urahara inquired inquisitively as a frown appeared on the blonde's face. "So Uzumaki-kun, may I ask what was on your mind? You must have been in deep thought to just walk into me." "I needed to restock on some shuriken and kunai, but none of the ninja shops I've been to will sell me anything," Naruto yelled. Urahara frowned when he heard this, then grinned broadly. "Well, now that makes no sense. Why would they push away a potential customer? Tell you what, you can come to my shop and get all the supplies you need," he replied unexpectedly to Naruto. In a hopeful tone, Naruto said, "What, you own a shop?" Urahara covered his heart with a hand to simulate pain. He said, "Of course I do. Why would I say I do if I didn't?" Which made Naruto smile. As he prepared to run in any direction, he cheered, "Okay then, let's go." Urahara grabbed the back of his collar before he had even taken 2 steps. He pointed away from where Naruto was going and said, "While I encourage the enthusiasm, the shop is that way." Naruto intelligently responded, scratching the back of his head, oops. As they engaged in pointless small talk, the two of them moved toward the direction Urahara indicated. In all honesty, Naruto could say that this was one of his favorite times in his life. He was speaking with a real person who didn't appear to despise him. If he were being completely honest with himself, he would say that this new acquaintance has treated him better than his teammates have since Team 7 was formed. They soon came to a stop in front of a building marked Urahara Shop in the more desolate area of Konoha. Urahara smiled proudly and said, "So what do you think? Impressive, right? I came up with the name myself." Playfully, Naruto questioned, "Really? How on earth did you come up with a name like that?" As he opened the door and the two entered, he replied, "It just came to me really." He yelled, "We have a customer," as three individuals came in through a rear door. A tall, muscular man with slightly tanned skin was the first. His hair was black, and his long sideburns were joined by a big handlebar mustache. He was dressed in gray pants, a blue apron, a white muscle shirt, and a pair of rectangular glasses. Two children, a girl and a boy, flanked the man. The boy wore blue shorts and a white shirt, and he had red hair. The girl was dressed in a pink skirt with white dots and a white shirt. Her hair was tied in pigtails and was black with a hint of purple. Naruto glanced at the store after he had a clear view of the three. The shop is kinda small, but it's got a pleasant feel to it, like it's more of a home instead of a store. He laughed. The tall man's body went rigid as he stared at Naruto after saying those words. He strode stiffly in the direction of the young blonde, who was afraid he had offended him. The man caught Naruto in a bone-crushing embrace, which caught Naruto completely off guard. He exclaimed, "To say such kind words about our humble shop. Thank you so much," as he shed happy tears. Naruto attempted to speak, but nothing came out. The lack of oxygen made him feel as though he would pass out. Urahara said, "Tessai-kun, you might want to let the poor boy go." As he listened, the man who went by Tessai released the boy, causing him to fall onto his back while he gulped down some much-needed air. Urahara clarified, "You'll have to forgive him. Tessai-kun takes pride in this shop. Now then, I believe it's time for introductions." With a bow, Tessai said, "Hi, I am Tsukabishi Tessai." The girl bowed and said, "I am Sumugiya Ururu." The boy said simply, "Hanakari Jinta," and then turned away. The boy scoffed when Naruto said, "Nice to meet ya. The name's Uzumaki Naruto, future Hokage." Jinta smirked and taunted, "A blonde idiot like you Hokage? Yay, right. What was that, you little piece of?" Tessai gave Jinta a fist to the head for interrupting, saying, "You heard me, blondie." The burly man scolded, "Jinta, that is no way to treat a customer." Ururu-chan, Naruto is in need of some supplies. Why don't you help him get what he needs? Suggested Urahara. Before guiding Naruto to the specified spot in the store, the girl muttered, "Hi." He thanked Ururu after obtaining everything he required and then proceeded to Urahara. He drew the older blonde's attention by asking, "How much do I owe you, Urahara?" Urahara rubbed his chin thoughtfully before his typical smile appeared. To Naruto's surprise, he said, "Tell you what, since this is your first time shopping here, it's on the house." He asked, not believing what he was hearing, "Really?" Urahara replied, "Yes, consider it a step to come back to our store." Naruto exclaimed joyfully, "Are you kidding? I'll do all my shopping here from now on." It was looking like today would be fantastic. As Naruto waved goodbye to the store staff before heading out to meet his team, Urahara remarked, "Excellent. It's been a pleasure doing business with you. I hope to see you here again." Tessai turned to face the green-clad man as soon as the shop door closed. The muscular man said, "You seem to have taken a liking to the boy. Is there any particular reason?" Unexpectedly, Urahara said, "I think I have just found myself an apprentice Tessai-kun." "Him? He looked like a total wimp," Jinta exclaimed, clearly unimpressed by the blonde character. In order to avoid upsetting Jinta, Ururu discreetly added her viewpoint, saying, He seemed nice." Tessai raised an eyebrow and remarked, "Really? That is a bit of a surprise." He merely remarked, "I sense much potential in him," and proceeded to the rear of the store. Training grounds for Team 7 Naruto was frowning while seated and leaning against a tree. He enjoyed his conversation with Urahara earlier today, but at the moment, he could only say one word to sum up his feelings. Bored. He was waiting for their late sensei while seated with his teammates. Sakura gazed at Sasuke with admiration as he engaged in his favorite activity, brooding. This was a typical situation. Sakura would openly drool around him with hearts in her eyes. Sasuke would pout, and Kakashi would be 2 hours late. He moaned to himself, "Kami, if you truly love me, you would send Kakashi here right away before I go insane from seeing these two." Kakashi abruptly appeared in front of the genin via a shunshin, so Kami must have felt sorry for the blonde. A sheepish Kakashi scratched the back of his head and said, "Hello guys. Sorry I'm late, but I was on my way here when I noticed my socks didn't match, so I had to go back home and change them." Sakura screamed, "Liar," and pointed the finger accusingly at their sensei. Her voice was so loud that the other three of them flinched. Naruto deadpanned, "I hate to break it to you, sensei, but you're not even wearing socks." The three genin started to perspire as Kakashi waved his hand dismissively and said, "Let's not focus on the details, okay?" With a smile that caught their attention, Kakashi said, "Anyway, I have some exciting news." With curiosity, Sakura inquired, "What is it, sensei?" He surprised them by saying, "I have signed the three of you up for the Chunin exams." After hearing the words, they all reacted differently. Sakura appeared uncertain, Naruto was smirking, and Sasuke was sure he would pass. "Okay," he exclaimed, grinning, "that will be one step closer to Hokage once I become a Chunin?" Sasuke sneered, but Kakashi laughed at the blonde's enthusiasm. Naruto glared at the Uchiha when he said, "Please, like Adobe, like you could become a Chunin, let alone Hokage." Sakura punched Naruto after he yelled, "What was that, Teme? Why don't you bring your emo ass over here and I'll show you which one of us is closer to Chunin." Naruto. "Baka, shut up. Don't you talk to Sasuke-kun like that," she yelled. After getting back up and dusting himself off, Naruto turned to face his crush. When Naruto complained, she gave him another fist. "But Sakura-chan, he started it. If he didn't have that stick up his ass, then maybe he wouldn't be such a Teme," she said. "And exaggerated. Shut it, Baka. Kami, you're so annoying," she exclaimed. As he observed his students' antics, Kakashi could only sigh. He tried to attract their attention by clearing his throat. By saying, "Now then, the exams are in 10 days, so we will have to prepare you guys," he managed to get their attention. "How are you going to do that, Kakashi? Sensei, are you finally going to teach us some kick-ass jutsu?" Naruto was excitedly asking. When Kakashi gave him a negative headshake, his enthusiasm vanished. "I'm afraid not. Teaching you a new jutsu for the exam would be useless unless you've mastered it completely. We don't have enough time, so I'll have to teach you some exercises that will overcome your weaknesses. Depending on how fast you are, I might be able to add in a simple jutsu or two, but nothing fancy." Kakashi clarified that the student understood the remaining three. Sakura asked, "So what's the plan, sensei?" as the other person nodded in interest. "Well, Sakura, I'm give you some scrolls to have a better understanding about genjutsu. If you understand the mechanics, you might actually be able to learn one or two before the exam because of your excellent chakra control." He clarified and made Sakura laugh. She turned to face Sasuke in the hopes that he would be impressed, but she was disappointed when she noticed his lack of interest. With a nod from the Uchiha, Kakashi stated, "Sasuke, since you have just unlocked your Sharingan, you and I will be training on how to access it easier and how to properly use it." He would be content with this for the time being, even though he wished he could replicate some of Kakushi's jutsu. In addition, he can simply copy some jutsu during the test if he knows how to use the Sharingan. Inquiring about the type of training he would receive, Naruto said, "What about me, sensei?" As the training field fell silent, Kakashi explained, "For you, Naruto, you will continue with the tree climbing exercise. Do that as much and as long as you can. Your biggest weakness is your chakra control, so hopefully this will help." As he processed what his sensei had just told me, Naruto blinked a few times. Kakashi sighed as Naruto angrily questioned, What do you mean I have to do the tree climbing exercise? How come they get to learn something new while I'm stuck climbing trees? Like I said, your chakra control is the worst on the team. Learning something new won't make a difference if you waste too much chakra. I'm sorry if this upsets you, but it's for the best," he said with an air of boredom. The blonde retorted, or maybe you're just too lazy to teach all three of us so you're ditching me. Sakura gave him a fist for his outburst. She totally ignored the fact that Naruto knew the shadow clone technique and she only knew the basic academy jutsu when she said, "Shut up, Baka. Who cares, it's not like could learn anything useful anyway." With a smug grin, Sasuke remarked, "For once she's right. Adobe like you should quit wasting their time." Sakura nearly passed out when she heard her crush concur with her. Naruto's rage increased as he heard the way his teammates spoke to him. He glanced at his sensei, unwilling to face this. "While I would love to stay here and receive more insults, I should probably work on my chakra control since I'm such a terrible shinobi. Are we done with this meeting or are we going to make more jokes at my expense?" he said in an icy voice that shocked everyone. He smiled, and Naruto snorted as he said, "No, here's your sign-up sheet. It has all the information you'll need and make sure you're not late." Before taking the form from Kakashi's hand and abandoning his teammates to train alone, he remarked mockingly, "Coming from you, that's rich." Konoha's streets, it was evident that Naruto was not feeling well as he strolled through the streets. It appears that, like his early years, he had to train himself, alone. He ran a hand through his hair and gazed up at the sky, trying to come up with some ideas. Before he threw that idea out of his mind, he might be able to persuade Iruka to lend him a hand. Iruka's responsibilities as an academy teacher kept him too busy. He shoved his hands into his pockets and shook his head until he heard a crinkling sound. He took it out, scowling in bewilderment, and discovered a note. "Uzumaki.kun, please feel free to visit the shop if you ever need some training. Training the future Hokage would be a pleasure. We invite you to visit us at any time. You're a very attractive friend, the Urahara." Before he read the note again, Naruto asked himself in shock, how the hell did he get this in my pocket without me noticing? Instruction? Was Urahara going to train him? Naruto smiled and sprinted in the direction of the store. He was open to receiving any assistance he could, even though he was unsure of what lessons Urahara could impart. He smiled as he arrived at the store and opened it. He exclaimed, "Hey Urahara! I got your note," as the green-clad man emerged from the rear chamber. He said sweetly, "Uzumaki.kun, what a surprise. I didn't expect you to arrive so soon." Urahara opened his fan to conceal his face as Naruto asked inquisitively, "I got here as soon as I found your note. How did you sneak it in my pockets anyhow?" He replied simply, "I am a man of many talents, Uzumaki.kun." With hope, he inquired, "Were you serious about training me?" Urahara closed his fan and exclaimed, "Of course. In fact, I'm looking forward to it." Naruto jumped with delight. Urahara frowned as he exclaimed, "That's great. I was worried I would have to train myself since my sensei ditched me." He asked, putting a frown on the younger boy's face, "What do you mean?" "Kakashi. Sensei said he signed us up for the Chunin exams and that we have to get ready. He gave Sakura-chan some tips on Genjutsu and he's going to teach Sasuke how to use his Sharingan. The only thing he told me to do was work on the tree climbing exercise some more because my control sucks," he yelled as he raised his arms. Urahara's face was thoughtful for a moment before he smirked mischievously. "Tell me something, Uzumaki.kun. Do you want to beat this Sasuke and show your sensei that you're a better shinobi?" asked the man. He exclaimed, "I would love nothing more than to kick that Tami's ass," which caused Urahara to smile broadly. "Well then, if you agree to be my apprentice, then I can guarantee you will be strong enough to defeat him," he replied with assurance. He exclaimed with childlike enthusiasm, "Awesome. Are you going to teach me some killer jutsu?" which made Urahara chuckle. He opened his fan to conceal his smile and said, "I'm afraid I can't teach you any jutsu, Uzumaki.kun. To be honest, I don't know a single jutsu myself." It was all he could do not to laugh at Naruto's face faulting. He questioned angrily, believing Urahara was making a joke out of him, "Don't know a single jutsu? Then what the hell can you teach me?" As Naruto assumed a contemplative stance, he said, "Now, calm down. Let me ask you something. You mentioned that your sensei is teaching this Sasuke how to use his Sharingan. Do you know how the Sharingan works?" It lets him copy any jutsu he sees, right?" he inquired. Urahara acknowledged that Naruto wasn't following him, but he said, "Well, there's more to it, but yes, that's one of its main functions." "Okay, so what does that have to do with anything?" With Naruto's eyes widening, he questioned, Why would you want to learn a jutsu just so your teammate can copy it? Determined to defeat Sasuke, Naruto said, "Okay, I get what you're saying. So what am I going to do? What I am going to teach you is not jutsu. I am willing to teach you some powerful techniques and they will be impossible to copy with the Sharingan," he said to the younger blonde. "Really?" The store owner clarified, "Yes, in fact the only person who can learn these will be you." "Really? Why me?" To Naruto's surprise, he said, "Because of your seal." He avoided making eye contact and asked softly, "You know about the seal?" But when he felt a hand on his shoulder, he looked up. Instead of his typical smile, he noticed Urahara giving him a tiny one. He shocked the boy by saying, "I know about it and I could care less about what you hold." "Really? Yes. So are you still willing to learn from me? I should warn you, if you chose to learn this power you won't be able to use chakra anymore," he cautioned the blonde. "What do you mean I won't be able to use chakra?" asked the man. Urahara stated gravely that, sometimes in order to gain something new you must sacrifice something old. "But how can I use jutsu? How will I become Hokage?" "Calm down. I'm not saying you will powerless. You will gain a unique power. Think of it as a Kekai Genkei. Instead of chakra you will use a different source of power," he clarified. Naruto pondered Urahara's words for a long time without saying anything. He questioned, "Will this really make me stronger?" With confidence, he replied, "I guarantee it." Naruto looked at Urahara and smiled, a resolute fire burning in his eyes. The man grinned as he said, "Well, then we better get started, Urahara sensei." He led Naruto to the back to start his training, saying, "Well, let me start by teaching you the fundamentals of Ryotsu and Rairyoko. After that, I'll teach you how to wield a sword. Come along, we're going to be pretty busy for the next few days." The evening before the Chunin exams, getting some last-minute exam supplies, Naruto strolled around the store and said, "Well, Urahara sensei, I better head home." As he rang up the price, Urahara remarked, "I think you're right. Tomorrow is the big day." Naruto smiled at his sensei as he paid for the supplies. He confidently exclaimed, "Yup. And after the training I've done I'll become Chunin in no time," which caused the man to laugh. "It's a good thing you have that confidence, Naruto-kun. Remember that a warrior's greatest enemy can be their own hesitance." Thinking about his teammates' reactions when they see his new skills, Naruto remarked, "You don't have to worry about that. Man, it's been 10 days since I've seen my team. Can't wait to show them the new me." Urahara smiled mischievously and said, "I bet their reactions will be priceless." Naruto said, "Yeah, just wait until I kick Sasuke's ass," and made his way to the door. "Hey guys, I'm leaving. The exams are tomorrow so I don't know when I'll see you again," he yelled. 3 more people joined them in the room after hearing this. "We will miss your company, Naruto. Good luck, but with all your training I doubt you'll need it," Tesai replied. He said to the burly man who assisted him in training along Urahara, "Thanks a lot, Tesai. Don't worry, I'll visit as soon as I can." Then Jinta smiled and teased, "I bet you will freeload her." The more Naruto advanced, the more Jinta admired the older boy during their sparring sessions. Nevertheless, the two enjoyed making fun of one another. Naruto retorted, "Whatever, shrimp. You know you'll miss me." Jinta booed, "Dream on, blondie." Just as Naruto opened his mouth to speak, a soft voice interrupted. Without confidence, Ururu said, "Good luck, Oni-chan." She began to enjoy the blonde's company, and Naruto freely admits that he did too. He ruffled her hair, making her smile, and said, "Thanks a lot, Ururu-chan." Naruto gave the group of people he could actually call friends one more glance. Over the past few days, he has enjoyed himself more with these guys than he ever did with his genin team and at the academy combined. He inhaled deeply as he walked out the door and gazed up at the night sky. A hand on his shoulder stopped him just as he was ready to head home. Urahara had followed him, he realized. He asked inquisitively, "What is it, sensei?" Naruto raised an eyebrow as he explained, "I just thought I should give you a final piece of advice before the exams." "And that would be?" Urahara pointed to the sword hanging at his hip and said, "When you hear its name, do not hesitate to speak it." Urahara gave Naruto a Zanpakuto sword on the first day of training. Urahara claimed that he would be able to unleash the full force of both his sword and himself at the appropriate moment. He believed his sensei even though he did not fully comprehend what he was saying. The man grinned as he reassured him, "Relax, sensei, I got it." Urahara returned to his shops and said, "Of course. Well then I suggest you get some rest. Tomorrow your hard work will pay off." Naruto nodded and started to move through the streets. Before he left for home, he wanted to make one more stop. When Naruto finally reached his destination, he sat down and looked out over the village at night. As he sat atop the Hokage monument, he mentally readied himself for what would happen tomorrow. Abruptly, he called out, "You can come out." He glanced over his shoulder after hearing a shuffling noise. He noticed a boy his age standing behind him. His red hair was short and spiky. He lacked distinguishing eyebrows and had green eyes with black rings around them. The kanji for love was above his left eye. In a monotone, he said, "You were able to sense my presence. Impressive." Naruto simply shrugged. He turned completely around and said, "Maybe. Can I help you or are you just here for sightseeing?" Naruto realized that the boy in front of him had to be from Suna as he looked at the forehead protector. Naruto raised an eyebrow and then grinned as he said, "I do not understand why, but mother is very interested in you." There was complete silence when he joked, "Tell her I'm flattered, but since she's already a mother she's probably too old for me." He whispered to himself, "Okay, so you don't have a sense of humor. Tell me, who are you?" the boy from Suna said. His words were straightforward. "Uzumaki Naruto, and you would be?" As his unwavering eyes continued to stare him down, he responded, "Sabaku no Gaara." Naruto assumed, receiving a nod from the redhead, "I'm guessing you're here for the Chunin exams?" "Yes, would I be correct in saying you too will be taking them?" With confidence, he replied, "Yup, and I plan on passing with flying colors." Before he disappeared in a swirl of sand, Gaara remarked, "I see. I look forward to facing you, Uzumaki." Naruto said to himself as he walked out of the monument to return home, "Gaara, huh? You're definitely a strong one, better keep an eye on you." Exam day at Ninja Academy. Together with his teammate Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke was standing in front of the academy. As they waited for the final member of their team, Sakura continued to swoon over the final Uchiha, but he chose to ignore her. Sasuke didn't seem to care that they hadn't seen him in 10 days. He was better with his Sharingan, and that was all that mattered. Sakura sighed when she saw him ignore her, and then, after swooning over Sasuke and complaining about Naruto, she cheered herself up by engaging in her second favorite activity. She screamed, "Where is that baka? He's going to make us late," which made Sasuke wince. "Maybe you should have used these 10 days to learn how to control the volume of your voice," a voice was saying. They turned to see their teammate, dressed differently, coming toward them. He was wearing black Anbu pants, a long, sleeved black shirt with a large red Uzumaki spiral in the center of the back, and a smaller one over his heart instead of his typical orange jumpsuit. In addition, he had a sword over his hip and an orange sash around his waist. After assessing his new look, the girl with the pink hair frowned at his words. She shouted, "What did you say? I guess your own yelling blew out your eardrums." Naruto shrugged his shoulders and said, "You didn't hear me?" She yelled angrily, "Who do you think you were talking to me like that?" Because she didn't like his newfound attitude. Sasuke silently observed and pondered Naruto's transformation. After a few moments of staring at her, the blonde turned away. As he entered the academy, he said, "Whatever, let's go." He ought to have realized that they wouldn't alter. He became aware of how badly his team treated him after spending some time at the Urahara shop, but he chose to ignore it. Unfortunately, they were wrong if they believed that nothing would change. Sakura asked, "What do you think happened to him, Sasuke-kun?" But the Uchiha, as usual, disregarded her and went inside, Sakura trailing behind him, pouting at being disregarded once more. As they moved through the corridors, they became aware of a sizable crowd. Although his team watched, Naruto thought to himself, "There's a slight disturbance here, most likely a genjutsu." It appeared that the two children standing in front of the door were preventing anyone from passing. One of the two guards at the door shoved away a girl with brown hair in two buns who begged, "Just let us through so we can take the exams." The boy in the green spandex suit said, "That was a very unyouthful thing to do." He had enormous eyebrows and a bowl cut. The green spandex boy fell to the ground and was punched by the boys after they snorted. One of the boys remarked, "Rookies like you have no place here." The other smiled smugly and added, "So why don't you save yourself the trouble and run back home?" To draw attention to himself, Sasuke said, "Okay, drop the act." "What act?" inquired one of the boys. As the crowd began to whisper among themselves, the Uchiha sneered, "This pathetic genjutsu. Drop it so we can go to the third floor." With hearts in her eyes, Sakura exclaimed, "So cool," as Naruto moaned. Sasuke narrowed his eyes as he exaggerated, "And you're supposed to be the rookie of the year." Exasperated, he questioned, "What's that supposed to mean, Dobi?" He sarcastically said, "It means you just told our competition how to advance. We're shinobi and yet you just helped an entire hallway of enemies. Bravo, Mr. Rookie of the Year." This made some people in the crowd laugh. Sakura started to say, "Naruto, you baka. How dare you?" But Naruto stopped her with a hand gesture. He walked down the hall and said, Yeah. How dare I make fun of his royal emo? Ness." He looked at the two guards before going up the stairs. As they exploded into a cloud of smoke, he yelled, "See you later, Katetsu, Azumo." When the smoke cleared, two adults were visible. Azumo said, "See you later, Naruto." Katetsu continued, "Yeah. Hopefully when you're done you can entertain us with a prank or two." Which made Naruto chuckle. He turned his teammates away after saying, "I'm sure I can think of something." A voice called out, "Hey, wait." They turned to see the young man in the green spandex approaching them, followed by his teammates. Sasuke grunted, still irritated that Naruto had made fun of him. "What?" Ignoring him, the child turned to face Sakura, who was uneasy. His smile turned to a thumbs up as he said, "Hi, I'm Rock Lee. It's a pleasure to meet you. Would you please go on a date with me?" She screamed in horror, "No way, you freak." Which made Lee's shoulders sag. Indifferently, Naruto observed them until he thought he was being observed. He turned to see a boy with long brown hair and white pupilless eyes standing next to the girl who had two buns earlier. Bored, he said, "Can I help you?" "What's your name?" inquired the pupilless boy. He disinterestedly remarked, "I'm no one important. Just an average genin trying to make it to Chunin." He headed for the exam room, not really caring. Without waiting for a response, he said, "You guys stay here and have fun with your new friends. I'll wait for you up ahead." He heard Lee challenge Sasuke to a spar the last time he heard it. He closed his eyes and leaned against the door as he waited for his teammates. When he opened his eyes, he saw his green-faced teammates and felt the presence of two familiar faces. He questioned, "What the hell happened to you?" Sasuke turned to Sakura, but he would not speak. "Eyebrows, spandex, sunsets," she uttered, barely able to put words together. He gave her a suspicious look before giving Sasuke one last glance and observing a bruise on his cheek. He made the Uchiha frown, but he said nothing to support Naruto's suspicions. "I'm guessing that guy kicked your ass." A voice said, "Well, now looks like you're all here." When they turned around, Kakashi was there, smiling broadly. Sakura questioned, "What are you doing here, sensei?" Before he examined them, he posed the mocking question, "Aren't I allowed to wish my adorable team of genin good luck before their exam?" Sakura fidgeted nervously as he said, "I know Sasuke is ready for this. What about you, Sakura? How were those notes on genjutsu?" She lied and said, They really helped sensei." In actuality, she never even looked at the scrolls that Kakashi gave her, but she defended this by saying that she was extremely busy. With the intention of impressing Sasuke, she purchased a few new clothes and hair care items. Regretfully, she was unsuccessful in every attempt. As he observed the blonde's new attire, he said, "That's good. What about you, Naruto?" Naruto remained silent. After a few moments of staring at Kakashi, he shrugged. His team looked at him, unaccustomed to his silence. He would normally be boasting about his strength by now. In an attempt to elicit a response, Kakashi said, "I noticed the sword you're carrying. Why the sudden interest?" Naruto gazed at Kakashi once more before letting out a sigh. Before he passed Kakashi and went into the exam room, he said, "Although I'm flattered you'd pretend to take a sudden interest in my training, sensei, I don't want to be late for my exams." His new behavior left his team in disbelief. Sakura quickly followed Naruto into the exam room after Sasuke snapped out of his hit. Kakashi was standing there thinking. Before leaving for the Jonin lounge, he thought to himself, "Is he upset that I chose to teach Sasuke how to use his Sharingan? Oh well, I'll make it up to him with some training after the exams." Exam Room Team 7 was taken aback as soon as they walked into the exam room. A sea of genin from various villages stretched out in front of them. All of these people appeared to be very strong. Is everyone present for the test? Sakura let out an inward panic. Perhaps she ought to have been a little more serious about her training. What was she thinking? She was confident that if she got into trouble, her beloved Sasuke would come to her aid. Sasuke smirked as he thought, there are some strong ones here, finally a chance to test myself. I'll be able to demonstrate to everyone that the dead last has passed away. Just wait, thought Naruto. He appeared bored on the outside, but on the inside, he was trembling with anticipation. A loud squeal cut through Team 7's thoughts. Before a yellow and purple flash rushed towards them and grabbed hold of Sasuke, an excited voice exclaimed, Sasuke-kun, you're here. Sakura frowned upon seeing this. Sakura yelled, what do you think you're doing, Ino.pig? Get your hands of Sasuke-kun. At the blonde girl who was tightening her embrace around Sasuke, she gave Sakura a disinterested look. As Sasuke attempted to break free of her hold, she said, oh, it's your forehead. Can't you see that Sasuke-kun and I are busy catching up? A sluggish voice said, you guys are here too? Troublesome. They turned to see Choji and Shikamaru approaching. A loud voice added, looks like the gang's all here. Shino and Hinata walked over a few feet from the Kiba. I'm actually glad you're here, Sasuke. Now I can kick your ass, said Kiba. Kiba glared as Sasuke smirked and said, trying to sound tough, dog? Tough luck, because no one believes your act. Maybe we s. Should Circa calm down, Kiba? Hinata stammered, unwilling to cause a distraction. Silently watching the others, Shino turned to face Naruto, who had not acknowledged any of them. It's interesting to note that he seemed indifferent to the blonde's attention, whereas the last time he saw her, he practically demanded it. Shino nodded and said, Naruto-san. The others turned to stare at the blonde, surprised that he had been so silent. When they noticed that he wasn't wearing his typical orange jumpsuit, they were even more shocked. Naruto said, Shino, good to see you again. He nodded and smiled slightly. Although he didn't know Shino well, he was fine in his eyes because he never made fun of Naruto. Choji remarked, geez Naruto, you look different. Kiba snorted in response. In an attempt to make the blonde lose his temper, he smirked and taunted, the dead last is probably trying to look cooler to hide the fact that he sucks. The blonde's emotionless eyes and icy smirk sent a chill down his spine, as though he were staring into his very soul. With composure, Naruto remarked, I look forward to proving you wrong, mutt. Someone remarked, would you rookies do us all a favor and shut up? The aforementioned rookies turned to see an older boy wearing glasses and sporting silver hair come toward them. Despite his seeming indifference, Shikamaru asked, and just who are you supposed to be? The name's Kabuto. And here's a piece of advice. If you want to survive, take this seriously. Right now you're acting like this is a school reunion. I'd like the shinobi you're instead of a couple of little kids, he said with a growl. Angrily, Ino questioned, who the hell do you think you are talking to us like that? Smoothly, he shot back, I'm a more experienced shinobi who's just trying to save you. And how exactly are you saving us? Sakura questioned skeptically. The others looked around the room to see what he was talking about when he said, if you'd look around you'd see you're attracting some attention. They were being glared at by nearly every genin in the room. Kabuto grinned as he observed the rookies retreating, saying, see? Everyone's a bit on the edge because of the exams. If you continue to be as loud as you were, someone might snap and beat the crap out of you. A tremendous surge of murderous intent permeated the air just as he was ready to continue. When Kabuto and the other Konoha genin searched for the source, they were shocked to discover that Naruto was the source. Naruto made the decision to research the competition while Kabuto was chatting with the others. He glanced around and saw a familiar set of green eyes. The eyes of Gaara, who was also present in the room, were fixed on him. Unconsciously influencing the other people in the room, the two of them gazed at one another, unleashing their murderous intent. Gaara's two teammates were taken aback when Naruto, grinning at the Suna genin, made a cutting motion with his thumb pointing to his neck. Then Naruto noticed a smile on Gaara's typically expressionless face. However, it was a psychotic smile rather than a joyful one. The others were staring at him with wide eyes when Naruto turned away. He felt his face, making them confront their fault, and asked, what? Is there something on my face? Kiba screamed. What do you mean what? What the hell was that? Naruto shrugged and turned to Kabuto, saying, I have no idea what you're talking about, doggy. He remarked, you look like you know how things work around here. The silver-haired teen grinned. He clarified, well, this isn't my first time taking the exams. Sakura inquired inquisitively, really? How many times have you taken it? He surprised them by saying, this is my 7th. Kiba said, so then, you suck. Which made Kabuto perspire. He gave a somewhat defensive explanation, saying, no, it means the exams are far more difficult than you thought. He then produced a deck of cards, though, on the plus side, I've been able to gather quite a bit of information. What are those? Choji inquired, unable to comprehend the significance of the cards. These are shinobi skill cards. They can tell me a little bit about anyone in this room, he said with pride. Anyone? Sasuke inquired, his curiosity tinged. Yay. Why do you have someone in mind? Replied the man. Uchiha said, Rock Lee of Konoha. Naruto added, drawing interest from the others, Sabaku no Gaara of Suna. Before he pulled out 2 cards at random, Kabuto shuffled the deck and said, you know their names? That takes away the challenge. After concentrating his chakra, the card quickly contained details about the 2 genins that were mentioned. First up we have Rock Lee. Teammates are Hyuga Neji and Tenten with Maeda Guy as their sensei. He completed 20D rank missions and 11 circa rank. His taijutsu is off the charts. This will be his first year taking the exams. Nothing else worth mentioning. Now then Sabaku no Gaara. Since he's from a foreign village I have less info on him. I don't have much on his techniques but he has completed 8 circa rank missions and 1B rank. The most interesting thing is that he's come back from every mission without a scratch. Looks like you chose the wrong shinobi to mess with Blondie. Kabuto said as he returned the cards to the deck. He expected Naruto to be anxious when he looked at him, but he was taken aback by the savage smile on his face. The others heard him say, I knew he was strong. I look forward to facing you, Gaara. Shikamaru questioned, how do you know Asuna shinobi anyway? Naruto shrugged and said, had a little run-in with him last night. For some reason he decided to target me. Sasuke sneered, why would he target a dobi like you? The Uchiha glared at Naruto as he retorted, I'm the dobi. I'm not the one who told everyone about the genjutsu teme. Sakura screamed in defense, don't talk to Sasuke-kun like that baka. A loud explosion in the front of the room interrupted Naruto as he opened his mouth to speak. An entire group of adults emerged from the smoke cloud. Although his tone was more demanding, the man in the middle asked, would everyone please shut the hell up? He had on a black bandana and a black trench coat. The majority of the genin shivered beneath the man's gaze as he looked at them. Sorry for the wait. My name is Morino Ibiki, the proctor of the first part of the exam. Everyone hand in your application and you will receive a seating assignment card. You will do to that seat. Once everyone is seated we can begin the written part of the exam. Ibiki said. Naruto went rigid upon hearing this. Even though he managed to control his appearance, he went into a panic, saying, what the hell? A fucking written exam. He handed his application, took his seat, and then let his head thud against the desk. He moaned, I might be defeated by a fucking paper test after all that training with Urahara Sensei. If I fail because of his, Jinta will never let me live it down. Naruto-kun was the timid voice next to him, and he turned to see Hinata sitting next to him on his right. The Hyuga blushed and stammered, let's do our best. Naruto blinked a few times before letting out a sigh, acknowledging that this was just another challenge he would need to overcome. He nodded, which made her flush even more. Yay, guess you're right, Hinata. There will be some rules before we start. Ibiki started. Rule 1. There are 10 questions on the quiz and each of you will start with 10 points. I will only say this once, so pay close attention. You will lose 1 point for each incorrect response. Rule 2. This is a team activity even though it's a written test. At the end, your total scores will be added. Rule 3. You and your teammates will lose 2 points if you are caught cheating. Final rule. The team as a whole is eliminated if one member loses all of their points. He concluded by knocking Naruto's head off the ground. He cried in his head, Kami, put me in front of a dangerous shinobi and I'll fight. No problem. Put me in front of a test. That's just beyond cruel and unusual punishment. You have an hour. Start. The genin turned their sheets and started when he yelled, and Naruto slowly turned his paper and started to look through the contents in the hopes of finding at least one question he could respond to. With his chin in his hand, he thought, well, now, I'm screwed. I don't even know what some of these words mean. As time passed, the other genin in the room started using their strategies to obtain the information needed to complete the test. Naruto refused to give up and started to come up with a plan, but it would take precise timing if he wanted to carry it out without being discovered. As he watched the people in the room waiting for the moment to strike, he thought, I can cheat 5 times before I lose all my points, but it's better safe than sorry. 5 minutes into the exam, it did. One of the proctors said, number 32 5 strikes, you're out of here. The accused genin got to his feet and gave the proctor a scowl. You mean that I cheated? You have no evidence? The proctor slammed the genin into the wall with his forearm after the genin yelled, causing him to move quickly. Listen up, Gaki. We were selected as proctors for a reason, and the reason for that is that we are error-free. No matter how much you whine, the fact that you were caught remains unchanged. The proctor released the genin and said, now gather your teammates and leave. He pointed his index and middle fingers at the proctor, thinking, now. Bakudo number 1. Sigh. Restrain. The proctor was about to return to his seat when his arms abruptly locked behind him. What the devil? Everyone in the room, with the exception of Ibiki, who was surreptitiously observing the preoccupied genin, was drawn to his sudden outburst and struggle. He shouted in surprise as he attempted to move his arms but was unable to do so, and his gaze fell on Naruto, who tapped the genin's left shoulder. In order to make sure they were still preoccupied with the restrained proctor, he switched papers with the genin he knocked out and wrote his name on it instead. After he finished, he cancelled his previous technique and the proctor was free to move his arms. Inamori. Forced slumber, he muttered as he placed his open palm in front of his face. The genin's head lulled as he fell unconscious. Naruto smirked and trailed off, saying, hey, getting caught can definitely kill you, but if you can make a distraction to draw attention elsewhere. What was that? Someone inquired. I have no idea. The proctor said, perplexed. I was walking to my seat 1 minute, and then I realized I couldn't move my arms. Hello. Proctors. This guy is refusing to wake up after falling asleep. He must be hurt. I believe. Ibiki smirked as he approached, glancing over at the unconscious genin before turning to face the blonde. Naruto called out, sounding surprised. He's just unconscious, but he's fine. Before the fallen genin's teammates carried him away, he remarked, I guess we'll have to send him and his aim away. He wondered what had happened. Ibiki looked at the clock and saw that the last question was about to be asked. I don't know what that blonde Gaki did, but whatever it was good, he thought. All right, get ready. To get everyone's attention, Ibiki yelled, it's time for the last question. But before we start, let me add one more rule. Another rule? Naruto yelled in his head. Okay, so I'm giving you an option. Is the next question something you'll accept or reject? He asked in a way that confused the others. What would happen if we decided to turn it down? Tamari inquired. You automatically lose all of your points and fail if you decide to reject the question. Ibiki shocked them by explaining, not only that, but your teammates will fail alongside you. What? Why would anyone dare to reject the question if we were unsuccessful? Someone yelled. I was approaching that. The room fell silent as he said, if you attempt to answer the last question and get it wrong, you will fail and never be able to apply for the Chunin exams again. You're not serious. Some of the people here have taken the tests more than once. Ibiki grinned when Kiba yelled. Perhaps, but last year I didn't create the rules, he said. I guess you're just unlucky because this year I am. Kiba stopped talking, but he was still glaring at him. Raise your hands if you wish to quit. Ibiki went on, once your number is confirmed, you and your teammates can leave the room and try again next year. There was a tense silence in the room before genin started to raise their hands, and gradually the number of people inside decreased. Ibiki decided to test the blonde after remembering his little stunt earlier and seeing that Naruto was staring back at him. Blondie, how about you? You don't feel anxious or anything? He asked with a sly grin, and Naruto merely gave him a look before grinning back at him. I pledged my life to this village the day I put on this forehead protector. Why do you think I'll be scared of a simple question if I'm willing to risk my life for it? This is just an enemy question, in my opinion, and what sort of enemy allows its target to choose to flee? His eyes never left Ibiki's as he relaxedly placed his hands behind his head and spoke. As Ibiki looked at the other occupants and noticed that their nervousness had vanished, he thought to himself, hey, looks like that plan backfired. Not only is he not afraid, but his little speech seemed to have calmed the others' nerves. Looks like I'll have to pass them. In a final effort to scare them, he said, I'll give you one more warning, quit while you're ahead. Shuck it after taking your warning. I'm not leaving, Naruto declared with a smile. Really? I can only say one thing in that situation. You pass? Ibiki grinned as he spoke. You mean that we pass? What about the last query? Sakura inquired in confusion. Everyone who is still in this room has gone, I mean. Regarding the final query, Ibiki replied, there isn't any. So why were you frightening us in that way? Tamari yelled. The first 9 questions were designed to assess your capacity for information gathering. As he removed his bandana, exposing numerous burn marks and scars, he stated, the last question was to see if you had the courage to go on in spite of the risks that lay ahead. If you are caught in the real world, the consequences are a bit more severe than simply failing a test. As he replaced his bandana, he explained, you will be given missions in the future that you might not be able to refuse. As a black blur blasted through the window, kunai flew through the air, spreading out the blur to reveal a banner that read, the second examiner, the sexy and single Mitarashi Anko. He concluded, once more you have all passed the first stage and I wish you luck in the second part. You should not celebrate because it is far too early. I'm Mitarashi Anko, the second examiner. They had just completed the first section of the test and were being pushed into the second when a woman with purple hair yelled, and the room fell silent as everyone gaped at her. The younger shinobi simply stared as Mitarashi Anko led the group of Chunin hopefuls to the site of the second exam. The area's second stage will take place here. Some of the genin shivered as Anko said, welcome to Training Ground 44, or you can call it by its other name. The Forest of Death. A large metal fence surrounded the foreboding looking forest directly in front of them. Now that she thinks about it, Naruto hardly said anything to her, let alone asking her out, which was always a good ego boost even though she would never accept one of his invitations. Sakura muttered, it looks kinda creepy. Sasuke and Naruto looked straight ahead, making Sakura frown. She could expect the silence from Sasuke, but Naruto would normally say something to comfort her, but he didn't even spare her a single glance. It's kinda creepy, of course. Don't you think that a place with a name like the Forest of Death comes with its territory? She glanced around the group and saw that many of them were unnerved by Anko's taunts, but when her gaze fell on Naruto, she scowled. The blonde didn't appear at all alarmed, and he grinned as though he could sense her gaze. Anko narrowed her eyes and then smirked as Naruto said, you can try and scare us all you want, but it will take more than a few words to get to me. Anko drew a kunai and threw it at Naruto faster than you could blink. The blonde cocked his head, allowing it to fly straight past him, leaving a small cut on his cheek, and when he looked at Anko, he noticed she was gone. You seem pretty sure, don't you? He looked over his shoulder and saw Anko standing there when a voice asked him from behind. As she leaned over his shoulder and licked the blood oozing from his wound, she remarked, it's always people like you who die first. As she started to lap at the blood, she added, how wasteful, spilling all this rich and delicious blood. Naruto grinned and gave her a gentle pat on the cheek. Well, it would be a shame to waste it if it's as good as you say. Many genin blushed at the strange yet erotic scene before him, but he said calmly, drink as much as you want. Before she sensed a change in the air, Anko said, how kind of you. She quickly drew out another kunai, turned around, and pressed it around a long tongue that held the one she had previously thrown. A shinobi from Kusagakure said, I think you dropped this. Village hidden in the grass. As if she didn't have a kunai pressed against the other's tongue, Anko said naively, oh thank you. The grass ninja didn't move. Instead, she just gazed at them both with a strange sparkle in her eyes. Apparently bringing the grass ninja back to reality, Anko said irritably, unless you want to die I suggest you move. I apologize, but you and I are somewhat alike. As she made her way back to her team, she explained, the sight of fresh blood drives me a bit crazy. Anko grinned and blinked at this. While observing the grass ninja closely, Anko remarked, "Well, if that's the reason why, I guess I can't blame you." Naruto silently observed the scene, sensing something strange about the grass ninja. Before he heard Anko's loud voice, he thought, that one is strong, but there's something weird about her chakra. It's much darker than a normal genin's should be. "All right, I have to give you something before we start," she yelled, drawing everyone's attention, and then, to the confusion of the others, she took out a stack of papers from inside her trench coat. "I'll need every one of you to sign these consent forms," she said. "Why must we sign a document like that?" Sakura gulped when she noticed a cheeky smile appear on Anko's face before he turned to face the girl with the pink hair. "That way, I won't be held accountable if you pass away. You would prefer that I stay out of trouble, wouldn't you?" she asked innocuously, making some genin anxious. Naruto rolled his eyes, then picked up one of the forms and signed it without thinking twice. He handed the signed form back to her, saying, "Well, if it keeps you out of trouble, guess I'll do it." Not wanting to be outdone, the others signed their own forms, following Naruto's example. "I'll go over the second exam now that that's resolved. It's essentially a test of survival. One scroll will be given to each of the teams present. A heaven scroll will be given to half of you, and an earth scroll to the other half. You must hold onto your scroll and obtain the other scroll you require in order to proceed." As the words sank into the genin's minds, Anko clarified, "Once you have both, you bring them to the tower at the center of the forest." Sakura said, "So at most, only half the teams here can pass." "You've got it. Additionally, there is a time limit. You have precisely 5 days to accomplish your goal," she said, shocking them. "You think we'll spend 5 days in that forest?" Ino yelled. "How are we going to get food?" an appalled Choji inquired. "That's not my problem, it's yours. A basic campout shouldn't be too tough because you're a shinobi. Regarding food, there are plenty of edible items in this forest. However, there are man-eating animals, harmful insects, and poisonous plants there, so if I were you, I would exercise caution," Anko said casually, causing Ino and Choji to sag their heads. "I'll now go over the rules after outlining the exam's goal. You must have all 3 of your teammates alive and both scrolls in order to pass. Under no circumstances are you permitted to leave the forest. Additionally, until you arrive at the tower, you are not permitted to open the scrolls. You won't advance to the next round if you violate any of these guidelines." As the teams turned to retrieve their scrolls, she said, "So get your scroll and choose a get." Her voice was heard once more. The teams soon received their scrolls and selected a gate to wait by after she said, "Before you go, let me give you some advice. Stay alive." Her smile sent chills down everyone's spine. In anticipation of the start of the second exam, Team 7 waited outside Gate 12. Sakura looked at Sasuke and said nervously, 5 days stuck in a forest, great. But with Sasuke-kun on our team, everything will be fine." Naruto rolled his eyes and asked himself, what did I ever see in her? He glanced at his team and then at the forest. Survival. That was something I could do. After all, living in a village where everyone wants to see you die makes life essentially a survival test. "Please let me hold the scroll, Dobi." Sasuke extended his hand to the blonde and said, "You'd probably just drop it or something." Naruto chose to ignore him, continuing to gaze at the forest. "Remember to pay attention to Sasuke-kun, Naruto. Baka, now hand him the scroll," Sakura yelled, causing the 2 boys and the Chunin guarding the gate to wince. Naruto, who had never glared at her before, recovered from the pain and threw their heaven scroll to the Uchiha without saying anything. He then went back to thinking when a small alarm went off, causing them to turn to face the Chunin who was watching his watch. He then undid the locks and chains around the gate and turned to face Team 7. "All right, the second test has started." As they made their way into the forest, he wished them luck. As he and his group ran through the forest, Naruto thought to himself, "It's finally time to see the results of my training." About an hour into the test while walking through the forest, Team 7 slowed down and stopped when they heard screams coming from somewhere in the woods. Sakura shuddered, "This place gives me the creeps." Naruto said, "Calm down, we'll be fine." He had moved past his crush on her and was determined not to put up with her any longer, but she was still his teammate, and it wouldn't help him if she freaked out. "Will you two please stop talking for a moment?" To get their attention, Sasuke said, We need to plan ahead. Sasuke-kun. What do you mean? Sakura inquired. We must receive the scroll within 5 days. Furthermore, we are stranded in an enemy-infested forest until we obtain it. He clarified, receiving a nod from both. We can't just go walking around casually. So, what should we do, in your opinion? Sakura inquired, but Naruto spoke first. The others gave him an odd look when he said, I think we should rest for the first day. Why don't we just give you a break, Baka? We must obtain a scroll, Sakura shouted. Hey, let the Dobi talk. Even though the Uchiha didn't like Naruto, he couldn't deny that he could be surprisingly resourceful. He might say something useful, Sasuke said, surprising them. Consider it. The majority of teams will probably panic and rush. We can gather supplies while they rush. We are completely unprepared and uninjured because we don't know this area. To the surprise of his teammates, Naruto thought, so we can set up some traps, look for some edible food and water, and then we can strike when the other teams are weakened. The class idiot did have some good points. He makes some valid points, as much as I hate to say it. We'll forage for food and wait a day for the other teams to exhaust themselves. Just as the three of them were ready to grab some food, a strong gust of wind struck, sending them all flying. When the wind died down, Sasuke turned to see Sakura lying beside him, but he couldn't see his blonde teammate. With his teeth clenched, Sasuke thought, we were reckless. And now an enemy was able to separate Naruto from us. He got up and approached Sakura. Sakura, rise! He yelled, trying to rouse her, and Sakura started to stir, looking up blearily. What took place? She inquired. He got Sakura's full attention by saying, most likely an enemy attack. Are you certain? It was not a natural wind. He clarified, they also kept us apart from Naruto. What a worthless baka. He allows himself to be separated from us while we are being attacked. I'm going to kick his ass when I see him, she shouted, disregarding the fact that the enemy was to blame. Amusing. They turned to see the grass ninja from before, but he was by himself. You say that as if you're going to be leaving here alive, a voice said. Uchiha Sasuke, I've heard a lot about you. Before rushing at the two of them, he said, I hope you can entertain me. Alongside Naruto. What struck me? As he stood up and rubbed his head, Naruto moaned and realized he was by himself. Where are the Teme and Sakura? He asked himself. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he remembered that the two shinobi were the teammates of the grass ninja from earlier. To make this easier, I am calling the two of them crime and punishment because they each had the kanji for it on their hats. A voice said, you should worry about yourself instead of your teammates. He looked ahead and saw two shinobi staring at him, with a very large snake standing behind them. What on earth do you desire? Naruto inquired while closely observing them. Well, our leader wanted to test the Uchiha, but we didn't want to be bored, so we thought we'd keep you company, Crime replied. What on earth is your leader looking for with Sasuke? Naruto inquired. You shouldn't worry about anything, especially since you won't be around to see him again, Punishment screamed as he charged at the blonde, attempting a right hook but being thwarted by Naruto, who grabbed Punishment's arm and gave him a knee to the gut before hurling him in the direction of a tree. Just as he was about to launch his attack, he noticed a shadow hanging over him and narrowly avoided the enormous snake that lunged at him. As Naruto dodged the snake's tail and ended up getting kicked, courtesy of Crime, he remarked cynically, 3 versus 1, that's so fair. Crime threw a handful of shuriken and said, there's no such thing as fair for us shinobi. Naruto pulled out his sword, blocked the shuriken, and dodged a roundhouse kick from Punishment, who had recovered from Naruto's earlier attack. After catching Punishment off guard with a sweep kick, Naruto sprang to his feet and struck his opponent in the stomach, sending him to the ground with enough force to cause cracks. He pointed his finger at the enormous snake's head and said, Hado number 1. Show. Thrust. Suddenly, a force was generated from the finger that struck the snake's head, causing it to stumble back. Crime aimed a kunai at Naruto and said, neat trick, but it won't be enough. Naruto managed to block the blow with his sword, but he didn't see Punishment grab his feet, which caused him to lose his balance and stagger a little forward. Crime pushed the blade away and kicked the back of Naruto's head, causing him to hit the ground. Whether it was instinctual or not, Naruto rolled out of the way to avoid another kick, but this time it came from Punishment. He stood up, shaking the cobwebs from his head, when the snake's tail struck his chest, sending him crashing into a tree. Naruto glared at the snake, but also heard a hissing sound, and when he looked to his left, he saw a kunai embedded in the tree, and it had an explosive tag. After the next explosion, Naruto flew until he struck the ground, got to his feet, and scowled at the 3 people in front of him. All right, so I have 3 opponents at once, and I'd better get rid of the giant-ass snake first before working on the 2 clowns. Okay, I hope you had your fun because now it's my turn, Naruto replied. You can talk all you want, but it won't help. Crime sprinted in the direction of the blonde and yelled. He yelled, "Wind release!" Great breakthrough, and a gust of wind was hurled at Naruto, who leapt to avoid it. He was about to counterattack when he sensed a presence above him, and he looked up just in time to see Punishment finish a few hand seals. Punishment shouted, "Water release!" Wild water wave, as a strong stream of water slammed Naruto to the ground, causing him to wake up groggily only to feel the ground beneath him tremble. The floor around him started to collapse as the enormous snake leapt from the ground, consuming the earth and Naruto along with it. Sakura and Sasuke together. Sasuke smirked and threw 2 kunai knives at the grass ninja, who stepped back and let it hit the ground in front of him. His eyes widened when he saw the explosive tags attached, and he was barely able to get away before being caught in the explosion. Fire release. Great fireball technique, Sasuke said as he fired a large fireball at the grass ninja, which the ninja easily dodged. When Sasuke felt the floor beneath him shift, he looked around for his opponent but was unable to locate him. His eyes widened, and he leapt away, dodging a slash from the grass ninja's kunai as he shot out of the ground. "Keep your hands off of my Sasuke-kun," Sakura shouted as she hurled a bunch of shuriken, and their opponent simply moved to avoid the projectiles with ease. As he performed several hand seals, he remarked, "I have no use for you, little girl." He raised his arm and said, "Hidden shadow snake hands." Then, without warning, snakes sprang from his sleeve and headed straight for the pink-haired shinobi. Sakura froze, not expecting such an attack, and she closed her eyes, braced for the worst. When she opened them, she saw that Sasuke had thrown his shuriken to cut the snakes before they reached her. "You saved me, Sasuke-kun. I knew you were concerned," she yelled in relief, but she winced when she saw his scowl. "Avoid making fun of Sakura. It's not a game. We could be killed by this guy. How can she still think about her ridiculous crush at this moment? Didn't she realize how dangerous they were?" he yelled. The ninja attracted their attention by saying, "I certainly hope your other teammate is faring better than the girl." "Naruto? Are you aware of his location?" As much as Sasuke hated to say it, they had a better chance of defeating this man if Naruto fought alongside him. "Yes, right now my teammates are keeping him company," he replied. "There is a high possibility that he is already dead though." Sasuke grinned when he heard this. He and Naruto might not get along, but he was aware of one thing about him. "I apologize, but Naruto won't be defeated so easily," Sasuke declared. "He may be a fool, but he won't die easily." He then assumed a fighting stance and used his Sharingan. "So you'd like to go on?" As he assumed his own fighting stance, the ninja grinned savagely and said, "Excellent." The two gazed at one another before charging as though they were receiving a silent cue. Alongside Naruto, "I'm shocked that I was eaten. This is really disgusting." From inside the snake that ingested him whole, Naruto yelled. He went on to rant, trying to come up with a solution, saying, "If Sasuke ever finds out about this, I'll never hear the end of it. Well, I'll be using this in combat for the first time." As Naruto pulled out his sword, he said, "I hope it works." His body and blade were soon encircled by a blue and white aura, and he held his sword in a two-handed grip. Naruto's aura was able to push the snake's internal muscles, giving him enough space to swing. As he swung his blade, he uttered the words, "Ryodan," bisection, which had sufficient force to sever the snake's body. When Naruto emerged from the snake with his sword drawn, the two grass ninja watched in shock as the snake was split in two, and their eyes widened even more. Naruto walked away from the corpse and grinned at their faces. As his opponents regained consciousness and scowled at the blonde, he smirked and said, "One down, 2 to go." Crime went through some hand seals and said, "Don't get cocky." As the ground around Naruto started to change, he said, "Earth release. Earth flow spears." Naruto managed to jump just in time to avoid being stabbed by stone spears that were propelled out of the ground. A voice from above said, "Water release. Water needle downpour." Naruto turned to see punishment grinning at him as water started to collect in the form of numerous needles before they charged at him. As he landed on his feet, Naruto hissed in agony as the needles pierced his body. He lifted his arm in the direction of the airborne punishment and remarked, "You two are starting to be a real pain in the ass. These guys are good. This should be enough, but it might not be strong enough to keep them motionless forever." As yellow light started to form around his hand, he said, "Bakudo number 4. Hinawa, crawling rope." The energy appeared as a rope and shot towards punishment, binding him as the grass ninja fell to the ground, struggling to free himself. "How on earth did you do that?" As he struggled with whatever was holding him, the trapped ninja screamed. Before diving in and dodging a wave of shuriken, Naruto uttered the words, "Just evening the numbers. You're much more trouble than we initially believed, I must say." But as he went through some seals, Crime remarked, "It's time to end this little game." Hidden shadow snake hands, he muttered as a swarm of snakes erupted from his sleeve toward the blonde. "More reptiles," he sarcastically remarked, "fantastic." His sword grip tightened as he charged forward, swerving quickly to cut the snakes before hurling some shuriken with his free hand. Crime prepared his counter after noticing this. Sparks flew as the weapons clashed as he pulled two kunai out and charged at the blonde who swung his sword at the grass nin, proclaiming, "Wind release." Great breakthrough, as he created a gust of wind that blew the shuriken away. In retaliation, he threw one of his kunai, aimed at Naruto's head, but the blonde sidestepped out of the way. Naruto attempted to knee his opponent, but Crime ducked down to avoid contact. He then performed a sweep kick, which caused Naruto to fall back, but he used the momentum to backflip away from the grass nin from the vertical slash. "Stop avoiding, I'm really annoyed by it." As he charged once more, Naruto yelled. "The same thing could be said by me. It appears that we were misled when we were informed that Uchiha was the only gifted member of his team," Crime remarked as he performed some hand seals. He slammed his fist to the ground and said, "Earth release, stone cannon technique." A huge boulder sprang up from the ground in front of him, and when he punched it, it flew in the direction of the blonde. Naruto's eyes widened in shock as he watched the boulder approach, and he barely avoided the attack by avoiding the flying piece of rock by jumping over it. As soon as he hit the ground, he was kicked in the side of the head, sending him crashing into the base of a tree. He looked up and saw that punishment had escaped from his binding spell, and he lacked joy. "Brat, stop playing games. Let's get this over with." Naruto sheathed his sword and reached into his pocket to retrieve something that the other two couldn't see, and Punishment yelled as he and Crime attacked the blonde. Naruto managed to dodge and block the majority of the punches and kicks that the two grass shinobi threw at him. He dodged around the attacks until he felt a knee strike his stomach, sending him flying a few feet away. The two enemies grinned until they felt something tug against their arms, binding them, and they noticed light reflected from their bodies. It took them only a moment to realize that Naruto had wrapped both of them with ninja wire. Naruto stood up and wiped a little trail of blood from his mouth, saying, "Looks like it's game over." The trapped ninjas turned to see that he was holding the other end of the wire in his hand. As electricity started to build up around his hand in Hado number 11, Suzuri Raiden, bound lightning. The electrical current grew stronger until it moved along the wire. When it struck the two shinobi, they screamed in agony, and Naruto grinned at his accomplishment, but it was quickly erased when they vanished in a cloud of smoke. He thought, "What? You've got to be kidding me. I've been fighting clones this entire time," but was taken aback once more when a swarm of medium-sized snakes appeared in the air, flying from the location of the clones. As the snakes approached, Naruto thought, "What kind of jutsu was that? Damn it, I don't have anything that can handle this many snakes at once." Time seemed to have stopped. He yelled, "Come on Naruto. Think, since he couldn't possibly avoid all of those snakes." Naruto blinked in confusion as he heard a soft voice say, "Looks like you're in a real tight spot." He looked around and was shocked to see that he was no longer in the forest, but his current position wasn't much better. He was standing by himself in the middle of a blizzard. "What on earth am I doing?" Wondering why he was in the midst of a blizzard, he asked himself. The same soft voice from earlier said, "Right now you're in your inner world. He turned around and saw the figure's shadow move through the snowstorm. Once she was a few feet away, Naruto managed to get a clear view of the individual, and he was taken aback by what he saw. A stunning girl was standing directly in front of him. Her hair was long and lavender, and so pale that it was nearly white. In the back, it was tied in a half-dot bun. She looked at him with a happy expression in her dark blue eyes and immaculate pale skin. She seemed to have been anticipating his arrival. She was dressed in a white kimono with a pale yellow obi fastened to the back with a purple bow. Gazing at her, Naruto discovered that he could not speak. Without a doubt, she was the most stunning woman he had ever laid eyes on. The woman grinned amusedly at his stunned expression. She teased him, jolting him out of his daze. You know that it's impolite to stare. He scratched the back of his head and said, sorry. Naruto blushed as she teased once more, saying, it's okay. I'm actually quite flattered that my appearance was able to shock you into silence. He hesitated just before speaking. She had previously claimed that this location represented his inner world. What on earth is that? Excuse me, miss, but you said that we're in a place called an inner world. Exactly what is that? He inquired. The blonde was only perplexed when she responded, an inner world is a part of your soul. He asked, so you mean I'm in my soul right now? And she nodded. Basically. She crossed her arms and pouted when he said, so if this is my soul, then why are you here? With a wounded tone, she inquired, am I not welcomed here? Naruto frantically waved his hands at this. He yelled, no, that's not what I meant, which made her laugh. She smiled as she said, you're really easy to tease, and the reason I'm here is because I am a part of you. A part of me? He put it again. Yes, while I am not you, I am connected to you. It's because of that bond that you and I are able to meet each other here, she clarified. He realized and exclaimed, I get it. You must be my Zanpakuto spirit that Urahara Sensei was telling me about. He blushed because he wasn't used to receiving praise. Very good, that is correct, she said. After recalling his lessons on the Zanpakuto and their operation, Naruto questioned, so does that mean I'm able to use some kind of new power that Urahara Sensei told me about? The blonde raised an eyebrow in question as she said, that depends. Confused, he questioned, depends on what? She looked at him closely and asked, what will you do with my powers? Naruto was about to yell that he would become Hokage by using her abilities, but he stopped himself. The previous Naruto would have done that. He made the decision to consider his motivations for wanting to become Hokage and for wanting to get stronger. He heard a voice say, a person can become stronger when they have something important to protect. He reflected on the lessons he had picked up from Haku at Wave. Is there something valuable to safeguard? He reflected on Iruka, his older brother figure, the Hokage, who acted as a grandfather figure, and, lastly, the Urahara shop people, who treated him like family. If I can use your power, I'll use it to become Hokage. That way I can protect those who are important to me. To protect those who became my family. He said with determination. The woman smiled as she closely examined him and saw only honesty and unwavering resolve. Suddenly, the blizzard that had surrounded them vanished, and they found themselves in the center of a stunning field covered in snow. In that case I will help you, but first let me introduce myself. My name is... Naruto opened his eyes. He was now standing in the forest of death rather than the snowfield. He noticed that the snake wave was still coming toward him. His eyes narrowed as he grasped his Zanpakuto's sheath, which then started to glow. With a swung sword, he yelled, Soda no Shirayuki, and the forest turned white. In that case I will help you, but first let me introduce myself. My name is... Naruto opened his eyes. He was now standing in the forest of death rather than the snowfield. He noticed that the snake wave was still coming toward him. His eyes narrowed as he grasped his Zanpakuto's sheath, which then started to glow. With a swung sword, he yelled, Soda no Shirayuki, and the forest turned white. Looking ahead, Naruto took in his surroundings. The ground beneath him was covered with a layer of snow and ice, and the snakes before him were frozen solid. He looked at the sword in its hand, which looked entirely different now that he wasn't in imminent danger. He had a katana in his hands. The tsuba, hilt, and blade were all as white as snow. The pommel had a long white ribbon that extended from the hollow snowflake shaped tsuba. He noticed how light it felt in his hands after making a few test swings. He slid his fingers lightly over the blade and remarked, I've never seen a sword like this. The sword glowed abruptly, and its appearance changed as the light faded. Now it had a reddish-brown hilt and was a regular katana. He questioned himself, what the hell happened? A recognizable voice said, since we are safe at the moment, I return to my sealed state, which made Naruto blink. Naruto questioned in confusion, is that Usoda no Shirayuki? He noticed that he was still by himself when he looked around. It's me, she acknowledged. As the blonde kept looking around, she clarified, I'm speaking to you through a mental link. Oh, so I can talk to you anytime now? He said, putting his sword away once more. Very much. It's not that I don't like our conversations, but shouldn't you go find your team? Before slapping his head, Naruto blinked a few times in response to her question. He yelled, damn it, I knew I forgot something, as he dashed through the woods in search of his group. Shop Urahara Kisuke experienced a power boost while sipping his tea. Before a smile appeared on his face, he set down the cup and rubbed his chin thoughtfully. He said aloud to the other customers, well, it looks like young Naruto-kun has activated his Shikai. While restocking a shelf with some standard shinobi equipment, Tessai remarked, so soon? Looks like you were right about the boy Kazuki-kun. Urahara exclaimed with a smile, of course I was right about him. I chose him as my apprentice after all. Jinta leaned back in a chair and asked, so how do you think Blondie is doing? As Ururu swept the floor. Then he started to leave the room, saying, now that he has his Shikai I am even more confident that he will advance. Even better, now we can start the next level of his training. Ururu inquired, where are you going Kazuki-san? Before leaving the store, he said over his shoulder, oh, I'm just going to visit the Hokage. I think it's about time he and I have a little chat about our favorite blonde. The Forest of Death, featuring Sakura and Sasuke. Sasuke crashed into a tree after being kicked in the stomach. He groaned in agony and looked up to see the grass nin grinning down at him. Sasuke got back up and glared at him while he took out some shuriken and threw them, only for his opponent to easily avoid them. He taunted, oh my. You're going to have to do better than that Sasuke-kun. He fired a barrage of tiny fireballs and said, I'll show you better. Fire release. Phoenix Sage fire technique. After the flames successfully struck their target, Sasuke let a triumphant grin show on his face, but it vanished as soon as the smoke cleared. In his place, he saw a burned log rather than his wounded opponent. Fuck it. A replacement. As he looked around in search of the grass nin, he thought. After hearing an odd noise, he swiftly turned his head, narrowly avoiding a kunai that was approaching. A fist to the face and a knee to the gut sent him flying as he turned to face the direction it had come from, but the Uchiha wasn't finished yet. The grass nin's tongue protruded as he was launched through the air, encircling the Uchiha's ankle and drawing him back before delivering a forceful blow that sent him plummeting to the ground. He looked down on the fallen boy who was staring at him with hate in his eyes and said, as much as I enjoy toying with my prey, I think it's about time to end this. A kunai was aimed at him, but he quickly raised his hand and caught it with ease. As she threw another kunai, Sakura yelled, step away from Sasuke-kun. But the grass nin managed to parry it. As Sakura charged at him, he sighed, such an annoyance. She fell to her knees as she struggled to breathe after he grabbed her by the wrist and punched her in the stomach. Taking advantage of the situation, Sasuke grabbed a smoke bomb and hurled it at the ninja's head. Astonished by the unexpected maneuver, the blinded ninja vanished into thin air. Sasuke rose, seized Sakura, and fled from the grass nin in the hopes of getting away. This guy is too strong, even though I don't want to acknowledge it. How was I going to lose to him? As he ran through the forest, he thought to himself. He continued to run until a big snake materialized in front of him, and the grass nin was standing on its head. He watched them with interest and said, I'll admit that you're making the chase enjoyable, but was that the best escape plan you came up with? Sakura said anxiously, S. Sasuke-kun, what are we going to do? They couldn't compete with this guy. Sasuke remained quiet while he tried to come up with a strategy. Before taking out his air scroll from his pocket, he clenched his fist. At last he said, how about we make a deal? But the grass nin raised an eyebrow and said, oh, and what kind of deal are you proposing? Sakura was surprised when Sasuke said, just leave us alone, and we'll hand over our scroll. Given that the goal of the test was to gather the scrolls, he questioned, trying to spare your life by offering me something of equal value? Sasuke threw the scroll in the direction of the grass nin, saying, "Take the scroll and go." Halfway there, a blur grabbed the scroll and blocked its path. Naruto pocketed the scroll and said, "Now why would you just surrender the scroll, Sasuke? This guy is too strong." "Naruto, don't waste your time," yelled Sasuke. "Listen to Sasuke-kun Baka. If he can't handle this guy, then none of us can," Sakura said. Naruto merely scoffed while staring at them. "Confounding them," he said, "and you guys called me stupid." Sakura questioned irritably, "We already know you're stupid, but what does that have to do with anything?" He knew they were in danger, didn't he? How could Naruto possibly hope to defeat this man who was stronger than Sasuke? "If this guy is as strong as you say, then how do you know he'll keep his word? What's stopping him from killing us after you hand over the scroll?" "Lies, stealing, deception, that's all part of being a shinobi," he said while staring them in the face. The other two were taken aback, wondering how the class dobi could have thought of that while they hadn't. He started to laugh, drawing their focus back to the grass nin standing atop the snake. "While watching this team drama unfold is amusing, you're absolutely right, Naruto-kun. Why should I spare you, when I can kill you and take the scroll from your dead corpses?" he said as the snake made its way toward them. Sakura and Sasuke leapt aside, but Naruto shocked everyone by leaping ahead. He held the blade above his head, drew his Zanpakuto, and grasped the hilt with both hands. He swung his sword at the snake's head and uttered the words, "Suikawari, watermelon splitting." After avoiding the attack by jumping out of the way, the grass nin was shocked to see the snake's head sliced in two. The ninja observed the blonde with a critical eye and praised her, saying, "I must say you are stronger than I gave you credit for." His two teammates thought the same thing. "I couldn't do that, so how in the world did the dobi?" Sasuke pondered after witnessing his teammates' power demonstration. When did the Baka become so powerful? Sakura asked herself, not anticipating this at all. Naruto yelled, "Go to hell!" as he charged once more. The grass nin managed to leap out of the way before he could swing his Zanpakuto. He uttered the words, "Wind release. Great breakthrough," while generating a strong wind gust that smashed Naruto into a tree. After coughing up some blood, Naruto scowled at his teammates. He snapped the two of them out of their daze with a shout, "Why the hell are you just watching? Get off your asses and help me fight," before turning to face their opponent. Sasuke glanced at his blonde teammate. "This guy was at least 2 steps ahead of me no matter what I did. There's a chance we won't make it, even with Naruto present," Sasuke reflected. "I will never be able to exact revenge on my brother if I die here." As he made his choice, he thought, "I'm sorry, Naruto, but I have too much to lose. I'll never be able to restore my clan." He turned to face Sakura, who had been by his side the entire time. The words, "Sakura snap out of it," caught her attention. "Sasuke-kun?" she inquired, glancing at him and pondering their course of action. He startled her by whispering, "Get ready. When I say go, we run as fast as we can." She whispered back, "What? What about Naruto? I know he's a Baka, but still. He's planning on staying here no matter what. We both know that we can't beat this guy. A shinobi's main objective is to complete the mission at all cost. Right now our mission is to gather all the scrolls we need," he clarified. "But what about the proctor? She said we need the whole team if we want to pass," Sakura inquired. "What's better, all 3 of us dying or at least 2 of us able to escape alive?" Sasuke inquired. As Sakura considered what he had said, she remained silent. She finally said something, albeit a little hesitantly. So she nodded and said softly, "Okay, let's go." Naruto became irate and screamed, "Are you guys going to do anything?" while using his Zanpakuto to block a kunai. Sasuke exclaimed, "Go," as Sakura and he turned around. They fled, leaving Naruto alone, and he watched in shock. Even his opponent appeared taken aback. Naruto reflected, They left me." Looking back at the blonde, he said, "I must say, I didn't expect that. In the end it will lead to their downfall. Splitting up will just weaken their strength and make them easier prey." However, he remained silent. "I was aware that they disliked me, but we are teammates. I assumed they would support me, but they are just like everyone else in the village. They could care less about me." As he gazed at the grass nin, who was staring at him with the eyes of a predator ready to strike. He thought, now I'm alone. How on earth am I going to defeat this man on my own? As he assumed a stance, he thought. I'm hurt. Have you forgotten about me already? A quiet voice spoke out of his head. After a moment, Naruto recognized the voice and knew who it belonged to. Soda no Shirayuki. In his mind, he asked, you do remember me, then? She said this with joy, which made Naruto look sheepish in spite of the dire circumstances. I apologize. I suppose I'm just not used to communicating with you in this way. Plus, I guess it just slipped with everything that's been going on with this guy, he said. He could almost feel her rolling her eyes at him, even though he couldn't see it. I suppose that's a fair response. This time, just keep in mind that I'm always here for you, she said. Naruto let a tiny smile spread across his face as he heard this. Thank you. In any case, how can I use your powers? The ice spirit gave a little laugh when he asked. You already know how to use my powers, silly Naruto. The mental link between the two of them wasn't entirely sure what she meant when she said, all you have to do is think and you'll find the answer you're looking for. Nevertheless, they chose to give it a try. Shutting his eyes, he pondered how to unleash the powers of his Zanpakuto. The grass nin charged at the blonde who was preparing to put an end to this, saying, while this has been entertaining, all good things must come to an end Naruto-kun. This was not answered by Naruto. As an alternative, he opened his eyes and extended his Zanpakuto. Dance. Soda no Shirayuki, he said, rotating his Zanpakuto counterclockwise. The blade, Tsuba, and hilt all turned white as snow as he turned it, and a white ribbon formed from the pommel. After the metamorphosis was complete, a blast of chilly air surrounded him, lightly coating the grass below with a layer of frost. As the ninja walked up to the blonde, he said, that's a nice trick, but whatever you do won't change anything, now die. Naruto closed his eyes after simply staring at his opponent. He simply did what his gut told him to do, even though he wasn't sure how he knew what to do. He made a slashing motion while holding Shirayuki upside down. The tip of his sword formed a circle as he did this. As he leapt away to avoid the grass nin, he uttered, first dance. Tsukishiro, white moon. The grass nin saw something just as he was ready to attack. His eyes widened in surprise as he looked down. Before it spread and encased him as well, the circle was quickly covered in ice. The ninja was confined inside a massive pillar of ice as the amount of ice continued to grow. Naruto observed the ice pillar breaking until it and the grass nin were shattered into fragments. He saw the grass nin's remnants quickly transform into mud. He asked himself, a clone? Until he was struck in the back of the head. The grass nin kept a close eye on him as he was sent skidding across the ground. I'm not sure what you did Naruto-kun, but it seems like you were a larger threat than I gave you credit for. What is this? The Kyuubi's power, isn't it? As he stalked toward the blonde, he thought, leaving you will only hinder my future plans. Shaking the cobwebs from his head, Naruto dropped to his knees. He walked over and glared at his opponent. Ye Lord. Mask of blood and flesh, all creation, flutter of wings, ye who bears the name of man. Inferno and pandemonium, the sea barrier surges, march on to the south, he murmured. With a sly smile, the grass nin asked the blonde, what are you muttering to yourself? A final prayer? He said, Hado number 31. Shakuho, red fire cannon. In front of his palm, a ball of crimson energy formed. He aimed the energy ball at the head of the startled ninja. His head was encircled by smoke, and the force of the blow sent him stepping back. Wide-eyed, Naruto watched as his opponent's body decided to remain upright rather than collapse to the ground. He noticed that the ninja was slightly burned when the smoke cleared, but other than his face, he appeared to be in perfect health. As though wearing a mask, his face started to peel away. It looks like you were just full of surprises. My original objective was Sasuke, but I think you'll make a fine addition. How has he managed to stay upright? As he stood motionless, Naruto thought, my strongest Kido spell was the Shakuho. This man could not have been a typical genin. This guy is too strong, Naruto. He seems to be using a small portion of his power, in my opinion. He heard Soda no Shirayuki's voice say, you must get away. How can I get out? This guy will never simply let me leave. She said, I'm not sure, but you better think of something or else. Naruto nodded in agreement. He smirked sardonically as he watched until the ninja was directly in front of him. "I'm afraid it's over, Naruto-kun. Any last words?" he inquired. He slammed his hand on the ground, causing a huge burst of red smoke to envelop the two of them. "Just this. Bakudo number 21. Seikenten, red smoke escape," he said. The grass nin, momentarily stunned by the abrupt movement, retreated a few paces and started coughing. He waved his arms in an attempt to find some breathing room, thinking, "This brat is really starting to get on my nerves." When the smoke eventually subsided, he looked around, but the blonde was nowhere to be seen. As he tried to determine which way the blonde went, he told himself, it would be wise to get rid of him now. He will definitely be a problem with my future plans. His eyes narrowed and he hesitated just before moving. He could sense some chakra signatures coming his way. Signatures that exceeded all genins by a significant amount. Before he fled to hide before being found, he said, "It looks like those fools have discovered me. Looks like you two are very lucky. But rest assured, the Sharingan will be mine." After a day, Naruto, in addition to being relieved, Naruto was furious as he ran through the trees. He was relieved because he could sense that grass shinobi running away in the other direction yesterday. Because his so-called teammates abandoned him on the battlefield, he was furious. What were they able to do? Did they forget what Kakashi had taught them? He was definitely not going to let this one pass. He heard his Zanpakuto's voice say, "Naruto, you need to relax. Even though I am aware of that, I still find it unbelievable that they abandoned me there." In his mind, he roared. Shirayuki sighed upon hearing this. "I am aware of that. Even though what they did was unacceptable, they are still a member of your team whether you like it or not," she clarified. "You still need them if you want to move on to the next section of the test." Naruto became somewhat calmer upon hearing this. She was correct. He needed his team to pass this section of the test, whether he liked it or not. After coming this far, he was unwilling to give up on the exams, regardless of his current feelings toward them. He inhaled deeply, then closed his eyes and looked for the other members of Team 7's recognizable signatures. He eventually located them, but they were next to another set of unidentified signatures. He swore as he changed course, saying, "For fuck's sakes, they ran away from one fight and they're already fighting another team? God damn it." Shirayuki said, "So much for calming down," but Naruto ignored her because he was too preoccupied with getting to the others before they were killed. Sound Genin and Konoha Sasuke scowled at the trio of Sound Genin standing before him. How did they get their strength? When the three of them ambushed him and Sakura, they initially outnumbered them. Despite the Uchiha's ability to fight, the number game ultimately proved to be too challenging. After declaring his love for Sakura, who said quite harshly that he had no chance with her and that Sasuke was the only one for her, Rock Lee suddenly appeared to assist them. Since Sakura only knew the Academy Jutsu, which didn't really help them, she proved to be useless in this battle. Sasuke denied ever needing assistance. Lee was consequently compelled to engage in simultaneous combat with all three Sound Genin. Despite his best efforts, he was also overcome by the numbers. However, assistance arrived once more, this time in the form of Konoha Team 10. The Sound Genin was successfully repelled by this year's Ino, Shika, Cho. Their opponents were managed by their excellent teamwork, but they were soon overpowered by the Sound Team's brutality. The Konoha Genin group could only observe as the Sound crew methodically dismantled each of them individually. Shikamaru's tone was both sarcastic and lazy as he said, "Troublesome. We could have done a sneak attack Ino, but no, we had to charge them on head first." "Shut up, Shikamaru. We had to do something to help Sasuke-kun," Ino replied. She could not stand by and watch her beloved be killed by this Sound ninja. A panting Choji remarked, "Hey, where's Naruto? If he were here, he could have helped us." Ino sneered, "Please, like that dead last could do anything." Choji makes a valid point, actually. "Where is Naruto?" Shikamaru questioned Sakura and Sasuke. Even though he was the one who left him, Sasuke remarked, "HN. The Dobi ditched us. Probably got himself killed." Sakura pointed to the three Sound ninja and remarked, "We have no time to worry about the Baka. What are we going to do about them?" Dose looked at the weakened ninja and remarked, "I think we've had enough fun. It's time for us to complete our mission. It's game over, Sasuke." With a smug look on his face, Zaku mockingly said, To think that Konoha was this weak, it's pathetic. I agree, but enough talk. Can Zaku finish them? Right, exclaimed his two teammates as they rushed in. However, someone leapt between the two sides and punched the two sound ninjas in the stomach, sending them flying back before they could reach the others. What the hell? Exclaimed Zaku, gripping his abdomen. Kin asked in a similar position to Zaku, what just happened? Dosu said irritably, it looks like we have another guest joining us. The person in front of them was dressed in a black shirt with a spiral design on it and black pants. He carried a katana by his side and wore an orange sash around his waist. The Konoha genin did not recognize him, despite the sound ninja. Choji grinned and said, Naruto? You arrived just in time. Shikamaru smiled with relief as he said, you had to come at last minute, troublesome blonde. Sakura shouted, it's about time you got here, Baka, without remembering that she and Sasuke had left him. When he glanced over his shoulder at her, she was about to scream again, but her words were cut off in her throat. His blue eyes, which once showed her such warmth and compassion, were filled with anger. He said icily, shocking everyone, Haruno, shut the fuck up. He ignored them, though. He turned to face the sound ninja again. Give us whatever scroll you have and leave. If you do, I'll let you live, he said. At this, Zaku burst out laughing. Confident that he could defeat Naruto, he said, that's rich. It's 3 against 1 loser. Your friends are too tired to help out, not like it would matter. I'll admit you caught me off guard, but it won't happen again. Naruto pulled out his Zanpakuto and said, I'm warning you. I am in a very bad mood. Leave or else you'll regret it. He held his arms out in front of a blast of supersonic airwaves, shouting, and here's my answer. Decapitating airwaves. As the attack caused a huge explosion on the ground, Naruto swiftly sprinted to the side to avoid it. He pointed his index and middle fingers at Zaku and remarked, your attacks come from your arms. If I can restrict them, then I restrict your power. Zaku aimed his arms in preparation for another assault and yelled, what the hell are you talking about? How are you going to restrict my arms? Naruto said, Bakudo number 1. Sai. Restrain. Zaku yelled, decapitating airwaves. He felt an odd force around his arms before he launched his attack. His arms were abruptly drawn behind his back against his will, but it was too late to halt his assault. His aim was significantly altered by the abrupt movement, and he fired 2 airwaves, one from each hand. That struck the opposing arm. Zaku felt his arms being ripped to pieces, and he screamed. He quickly passed out because the pain was too great. Kin yelled, Zaku, as she was ready to assist, but she was stopped when Naruto unexpectedly materialized in front of her. Lifting his arm, he placed his palm directly in front of her face. He said, Inamori, forced slumber, as Kin experienced an odd feeling before collapsing to the ground. Naruto looked at Dosu without emotion and remarked, and then there was one. 2 of the sound genin were defeated by the dead last of their class as if they were nothing, and the others just watched in shock. Unable to believe what he had just witnessed, Dosu asked, how? He assumed a fighting stance and responded, they underestimated me. They made the worst possible mistake when facing me. Fuck it. This one is really powerful. When Dose reached into his pocket and pulled out an earth scroll, he thought, I used up too much chakra when facing the others. The ninja with the bandages added, if your offer still stands, I will relinquish our scroll in exchange you let me and my teammates leave here peacefully. After listening to him, Naruto put his Zanpakuto away. Very well. Hand over your scroll and leave, he replied. Dosu nodded and threw the scroll to Naruto, who caught it. He then gathered his teammates and departed the scene. After putting the scroll in his pocket, Naruto turned to face the other fallen Konoha ninja. Naruto stated without emotion, Haruno Uchiha, we're on our way to the tower. We now possess both scrolls. Everyone was taken aback by his tone of voice until Sakura realized he was giving them directions. Furious. Who made you the boss, Baka? She screamed. The blonde gave her a stern look in response. I was the one who got the scroll we needed and kept the scroll that the Uchiha surrendered. I will be heading towards the tower, so follow me if you want. But if you want to stay, then go ahead. I have no problems leaving you behind like you two did to me, he said with a frown. She wasn't treated like Kami's gift to the world by this Naruto. Sasuke demanded, Dobi, where did you learn those moves? He was furious that Naruto had defeated those sound genin while he had failed. As he headed for the tower, he said, "None of your business, Uchiha. Like I said, I'm heading for the tower. Follow me or don't, because I could honestly care less about what you two do." His teammates, taken aback by his new outlook, reluctantly followed him. As he observed Team 7 depart, Choji questioned, "What do you think happened to Naruto?" Wondering what had happened to the feisty blonde, Shikamaru added, "I don't know, but I have a feeling that things are going to get troublesome real soon." The two teams parted ways to locate the necessary scroll shortly after Lee's team arrived to retrieve the green-clad ninja. After completing their mission and traversing the Forest of Death, Team 7 found themselves inside the central tower. A poster with a message on it was the only thing in the empty room they were in. Naruto sighed and scanned the room for anyone who could advise them on their next course of action. Regretfully, only the three genin were present in the room. As he threw the Heaven Scroll, which Sakura carelessly caught, Naruto remarked, "We should probably open the scrolls." When she yelled, "Baka! The proctor told us not to open the scrolls," Naruto rolled his eyes. He looked at me sharply and said, "Then tell me, what are we supposed to do now?" Sakura remained silent as she searched for an answer but was unsuccessful. "I thought so." Sakura, the girl with the pink hair, had hearts in her eyes when Sasuke said, "Just do it, Sakura." She exclaimed, "Of course, Sasuke-kun." With a dreamy look. When smoke burst from the scrolls, Sakura and Naruto dropped them after opening them. As they watched the smoke clear, Naruto let a tiny smile spread across his face upon realizing who was in front of him. The blonde said, "Nice to see you again, Iruka-sensei." When the scarred Chunin saw how tense Naruto was around his teammates, he mentally scowled. "Hey kids, it's been a while." Sakura turned back to him and asked, "What are you doing here, sensei?" "I have to admit, I'm surprised. You guys got here a lot faster than I thought." Iruka grinned. "Anyway, now that you're here, you have some time before the next stage begins. There are some rooms around the tower for you guys while you wait for the rest of the teams to get here," he said. Sakura trailed closely behind Sasuke as he left the room, saying, "Okay then, let's go rest." Iruka stopped Naruto just as he was about to leave the room. As the older shinobi asked, "Is everything alright, Naruto?" Naruto sighed as he turned to face him. Iruka was left wondering what he meant when he said, "Everything's alright, sensei. I just figured out what I mean to my teammates." He then left the room. The seventh team proceeded through the tower until they reached the room designated for them. They didn't seem to mind that he wouldn't speak to them. The only time Sasuke spoke was when he turned down Sakura's request for a date. Otherwise, he was his typical sulky self. Naruto settled into a meditative pose while sitting on his bed when they got to their room. Sakura questioned, "What are you doing?" Not thinking their blonde teammate even knew what meditation was. Holding his Zanpakuto across his lap, Naruto entered his soulscape and merely ignored her. Scape of souls in the midst of a field blanketed in a layer of white snow, Naruto found himself sitting. The sky was clear, but there was a light snowfall. He exclaimed, "Shirayuki! Where are you?" Inquiring as to the whereabouts of his Zanpakuto spirit. He got up and made the decision to search the field for her. After what seemed like an eternity of walking, he eventually located the person he was seeking. Shirayuki was in the center of a frozen lake. As she danced across the icy water, Naruto watched in awe. She moved with grace. Not a single motion was wasted. She glided over the ice with a delighted smile on her face and her eyes closed. She was shocked to hear applause after she had finished dancing. When she turned around, Naruto was grinning and clapping his hands. He said, "That was great, Shirayuki." As she sheepishly scratched the back of her head, she chose to rehearse some of her dances without anticipating a crowd. She smiled and said, "Thank you." She tilted her head sideways as she approached him. "What are you doing here, Naruto?" "I have some time before the next stage of the exams, so I figured I'd use this time to get to know my new partner," he clarified. As she sat in the snow, she remarked, "In that case, I think it's about time you and I discuss on how to properly use my powers." Naruto sat down in front of her after following. Recalling his battle, he said, "Okay, so from what I understand you use ice like when I froze that grass ninja." She confused him by telling him, "That's right, and while you did a good job using the first dance on your first try, you haven't mastered it." "What do you mean I didn't master it?" I was able to freeze him solid. If he wasn't a clone, then he would be nothing but shattered pieces of ice right now. No, you were able to use the move, but you didn't master it. What you used was Tsukishiro, White Moon. The first and most basic dance. When you first used it, it took some time to freeze your enemy. Once you've completely mastered it, you'll be able to freeze your target in a second. Not only will that, but the range of this attack increase. She clarified and caused Naruto to nod with comprehension. Alright, I guess that means I have some training to do. Are you willing to help me? Asked the man. When Naruto flicked her forehead, Shirayuki yelled, "Of course. It is my duty to help my master." She rubbed the ache on her head and glanced at Naruto, her eyes betraying her bewilderment. Naruto emphasized the suffix when he said, "Never call me master. You and I are partners and friends. So are you ready, Shirayuki? Chan?" He got to his feet and smiled as he extended his hand to Shirayuki. After blinking twice, the ice spirit accepted the offered hand with a smile. She got up and said, "Hi, let's get started then, Naruto-kun. Now then, I need you to put your arms around me," she replied. Naruto took some time to comprehend what she was saying, but when he did, his eyes widened and he blushed slightly. "What?" he exclaimed. Although Shirayuki was perplexed by his response, she burst out laughing upon seeing his flushed face. "The first part of your training is me teaching you how to dance," she clarified. Naruto inquired, "How is teaching me to dance training? Remember when you wielded my Shikai form?" she inquired. "Yeah. Well, as you may or may not have noticed, my Shikai is a little different from other swords. It is designed for quick and precise strikes," she clarified. Naruto remarked reflectively, "Yeah, I suppose so. It really is different compared to other swords like Zabuza's. So in order for you to use my Shikai to its fullest potential, you must learn how to move fluidly. This can be done by teaching you how to dance. It can also help you learn how to avoid making unnecessary movements once you apply this to battle," she continued. Although Naruto listened and comprehended her words, he was still a little apprehensive. Shirayuki sighed upon seeing this. She asked, "Is there a reason you don't want to dance?" before making a mocking face of hurt and speaking in a low voice. "Or is it that you just don't want to dance with me?" Naruto became alarmed upon seeing her face and hearing her voice in that manner. He trailed off, "It's nothing like that, Shirayuki. Chan. It's just," before continuing. Shirayuki tilted her head, wondering what was bothering him, but she smirked at his response. She heard him whisper, "I've never danced before." He blushed more when she heard his explanation, and she giggled. Before taking his right arm and putting it around her waist, she said, "It's okay. Keep in mind that I promised to teach you how to dance." Then she put her left hand on his shoulder and her right hand in his left. She said, "Just hold me like this and follow my movements." He followed instructions, but his face continued to flush. He had never been this close to a woman as stunning as Shirayuki, much less held her. After some time, Naruto managed to detect her movements and follow along. Naruto only used his soulscape for food and rest during the next few days as he trained with Shirayuki. He didn't even look at his teammates once. Preliminary day, the Hokage began by glancing at the group of young genin in front of him and saying, "Before we begin, I would like to congratulate you all on passing the second stage of the Chunin exams." Naruto stopped listening as the Hokage started speaking. He started thinking about his run.in with the grass ninja. His opponent appeared to have been one step ahead of him at all times. Mentally cursing, he clenched his fist in frustration. He believed he was prepared to show the world how far he had come, but nothing much changed after his first battle following training. Though he was outclassed, he believed he got stronger. "Stop worrying, Naruto-kun. His Zanpakuto spirit's soft voice said, "I can sense your frustration from here." Naruto let out a sigh and composed himself. "I apologize, Shirayuki. Chan. The fact that the grass ninja I faced earlier was able to outclass me in such a way just really irritates me. I mean, I know I got some good shots on him, but other than that, nothing," Naruto said, his voice displaying irritation. "Perhaps, but keep in mind that experience plays a significant role in combat," Shirayuki clarified. "It was just unfortunate that you had to deal with an opponent who had more experience than you." Naruto felt more relaxed after hearing this. She was correct. He had just recently turned into a genin, and the only actual altercation he had involved Zabuza and Haku, and he wasn't by himself at the time. You're correct. With a slight smile, Naruto said, "Thanks, Shirayuki-chan. I feel a little better now." "No matter what, Naruto-kun." Naruto's smile widened as Shirayuki said, "Remember, I'll always be there for you." He had always desired this. Someone he could trust, someone he could call a friend, someone to look out for him. He wasn't going to gripe, even though he never thought this person would be a Zanpakuto spirit. He repeated the words, "Thank you," before turning back to face the Hokage. A sick-looking man stood in front of him, and he blinked. He watched in bewilderment as Kabuto held up his hand. The sick-looking man clarified, "You are Yakushi Kabuto, correct? Very well, you may leave." Naruto thought he was the next stage's proctor. As Naruto watched Kabuto leave the room, he thought, "Damn, maybe I should have paid attention." The proctor clarified, "Now that we have an even number, we may begin with the preliminaries of the third stage." Naruto assumed this man's name was Gekko Hayate because he believed he heard it during his conversation with Shirayuki. To decide who advances to the next round, we will have individual matches. Basically think of this as a tournament. The winner of each match will advance to the next stage. Since there are 20 of you remaining, we will have 10 matches, Hayate clarified. As a wall panel moved to reveal an electronic board, Hayate explained, "Each fighter will fight until one is dead, unable to continue, or forfeits. In order to avoid unnecessary deaths, the match will end if a clear victor can be determined. Opponents will be chosen at random based on this electronic board." As 2 names appeared on the board, Hayate said, "Now then, let's begin. Sasuke Uchiha vs Yoroi Akato. Everyone who is not participating in this fight, please move to the balcony," Hayate said. The genin who weren't supposed to fight moved in the direction of the balcony. Kakashi stopped by Sasuke and leaned in to whisper something in his ear before the other Junin sensei followed suit and made their way to their respective genin teams. Sasuke clutched his shoulder unconsciously as Kakashi shocked him by saying, "Remember Sasuke, if you let that curse mark get the best of you, we'll have no choice but to disqualify you." Final flashback recalling what had happened in the Forest of Death. Sasuke clenched his teeth. When he could hardly touch the grass ninja, Naruto the Dead was able to repel him. He was then taken care of by those Auto Genin, and the other Konoha shinobi were treated as though they were mere amateurs. Even though he was still weak and exhausted from the battle with the grass genin, he was still a Uchiha. However, Naruto reappears and defeats the Auto Genin by himself. How did he suddenly acquire those abilities? He was trained by Kakashi, and they were only apart for 10 days prior to the tests. How did Naruto get so strong, as far as he knew, when he only received rudimentary chakra control exercises? In an attempt to decompress, he strolled through the tower. After a day of his team being in the tower, he was beginning to grow impatient. No matter what he did, he was never able to get a response from the blonde Sakura, who kept trying to convince him to go out on a date with her and Naruto. He simply sneered and turned away to meditate whenever he or Sakura questioned him about his new abilities. And the hyperactive Dobi had been meditating since when? It doesn't make sense. How did he get so strong? How did he fight against them so well when they were able to defeat me? He murmured to himself. His eyes narrowed as he glanced over his shoulder and heard someone laughing. He was annoyed to see a random Chunin wearing a Konoha headband and asked, "What's so funny?" "Oh, nothing, but I can practically feel your negative thoughts from here. If I'd have to place a bet, I'd say that it has something to do with your teammate. Perhaps the fact that the once weak dead last is now stronger than the Rookie of the Year?" He chided. Sasuke's body tensed as he gave the Chunin a hateful glare. He growled, "That fool is not stronger than me." To Sasuke's chagrin, the Chunin simply gave him a patronizing smirk. "Oh, Sasuke-kun, that's where you were wrong. I'll admit that I too was surprised by Naruto-kun's newfound strength," he laughed. Sasuke repeated, "Shut up, he is not stronger than me," but when he felt something prick his neck, he grunted in agony. As he vanished in a puff of smoke, the Chunin in front of him grinned. He noticed the same Chunin that had been in front of him earlier biting into his neck when he turned to look at it. When the Chunin retreated, Sasuke exclaimed, "What the?" The Chunin turned away, and he spun around, gripping his neck. When he turned a corner, the Chunin said, "Think of it as a little gift." When Sasuke ran to the corner, he noticed that the man had left. As his vision started to haze, Sasuke asked, "What was that? Who was that?" "You'll find me sooner or later." In the meantime, enjoy my small parting gift. He heard a whisper before his vision went black. Final flashback. You'll have to wait, but I have a solution that will work for you. You can't let this curse control you, Kakashi continued before heading out. As he recalled what had happened after he recovered from that mystery Chunin's attack, Sasuke thought sarcastically, just great. This mark reacts to my chakra. Unless I want to get disqualified, I'll have to be careful. The mark spread, and he felt a strange, dark feeling that made him attack anyone who showed any signs of strength. As the two genin fought, Hayate remarked, and Naruto saw Yoroi, Sasuke's opponent, seal his hand before his right hand started to glow. I wonder what that is, Naruto thought inquisitively before scowling at Sasuke's clumsy performance. He was unaware of the attack on Sasuke because he avoided his teammates whenever possible while he was at the tower. Since he unlocked his Kekai Genkai, Sasuke has always used it, so he thought, weird, his movements are off and he's not even using his Sharingan. I was aware that he ought to have resigned while he still had the option. When Sasuke took a particularly severe blow, Sakura squirmed and said, Kakashi. Sensei, you have to do something. You were aware of Sasuke's nature. There was no way he would just walk away. Kakashi said in a casual tone, but hiding the concern he felt as he watched Yoroi grab onto Sasuke. From the looks of it, he had the ability to absorb his opponent's chakra. He looked at his other genin and saw Sakura's face etched in worry, but Naruto had a look of indifference. Mistaking that look as confidence for his teammate, Kakashi eyes smiled. Besides, have some faith in Sasuke. Take a look at Naruto. His concern for him is non-existent. Naruto laughed when he heard this, saying, I'm afraid you're mistaken, Kakashi. They scowled as he clarified, I don't care whether Sasuke wins or not, it's not that I have faith in him. Kakashi reprimanded, Naruto, that's not something you say about your teammates. He is correct. With regard to Sasuke-kun, how could you say that? Sakura continued, glaring at Naruto, who dismissed it. Like this. Whether he wins or loses doesn't matter to me. The same could be said of you as well, he replied nonchalantly. What's wrong with you, Naruto? With narrowed eyes, Kakashi asked, you would never have said something like about your team. He knew that his genin could quarrel and irritate one another, but he didn't anticipate that things would end this way. Sasuke and Sakura were not going to be telling anyone anytime soon, and Naruto simply didn't care anymore. They made their decision, and Naruto did too, even though he was unaware that they had abandoned him to fight an opponent who was better than him in order to save themselves. After a long moment of staring at him, Kakashi turned back to the match in time to witness Sasuke kick Yoroi into the air. Lion's combination, Shishi Renden, as he delivered a barrage of combos to Yoroi, culminating in a devastating reverse heel kick, Sasuke uttered those words. After making sure Yoroi could proceed, Hayate declared, winner Uchiha Sasuke. He succeeded, he prevailed. Sakura grinned broadly and cheered. Medics arrived to escort Yoroi and Sasuke away, but Kakashi refused to go to the arena, saying he would take care of Sasuke. The medics appeared reluctant, but finally gave in, and the teacher and student vanished in a tornado of leaves. Where are they heading? Sakura frowned as she asked. Is it important? Dully, Naruto inquired. What's wrong with you? You have been an absolute jerk ever since we returned from the second exam. Sakura screamed, frustrated by Naruto's new demeanor, but she recoiled from the glare he gave her, his eyes so full of rage that she couldn't help but whimper in fear. Naruto thought angrily, is she fucking serious? They abandoned me and left me for dead, and she has the nerve to ask what's with me. But he felt a soothing presence in his head that helped him relax. In a soft, soothing voice, Shirayuki said, calm down, Naruto-kun. Just ignore them for the time being. They aren't worth all this stress. Naruto inhaled deeply and exhaled. Naruto thanked Shirayuki-chan as he felt the tension in his body release. Before the mental connection between the two was severed, the Ice Sanpakuto spirit said, anytime. Naruto turned to Sakura and let out a sigh. With a tone as icy as the ice his Zanpakuto wielded, Naruto said, Haruno, I am not in the mood to deal with you right now, so please do the two of us a favor and shut up. Unaccustomed and a little scared, Sakura gave a meek nod before turning to face the screen where the next fight would be announced, silently hoping that Kakashi would return soon so she wouldn't be alone with Naruto. Abume Zaku vs Aburame Shino. How unfortunate. Zaku nodded to Naruto, who smirked at him, and said, I would rather face that blonde puck that did this to me. Shino remained silent and gazed down his opponent. It turned out that the casts he wore around his injured arms were merely for show, and he was still able to move them. The match was brief but good, and Naruto had to concede that Zaku's will to fight was impressive. His arms exploded just before he was about to unleash an air blast, but it turned out that Shino had clogged the air tubes with his insects, leaving him with no way out, and the air destroyed his arms from the inside. After the match ended, Kakashi reappeared, and Sakura started asking him a lot of questions about Sasuke. Naruto ignored him, instead focusing on the screen and hoping his match would come soon. Mitsumi Tsurugi vs Kankuro. Like the last match, this one was rather brief, but Naruto was somewhat intrigued by it because the only other Tsunagenin he had interacted with was Gaara, so he was curious to see how they would battle. Mitsumi began with a jutsu that allowed his body to bend and stretch his limbs as if they were rubber, and he swiftly got past Kankuro's defense and started strangling him. When Mitsumi offered Kankuro the opportunity to surrender, he refused, so he broke the Tsunagenin's neck. Unfortunately for Mitsumi, it turned out that Kankuro was merely a puppet, and the real one was concealed in the cloth on its back. As Mitsumi squeezed the life out of his now dead opponent, a number of blades appeared on the puppet's body, impaling him. You mean that Kugetsu no Jutsu, puppet technique? Naruto groaned as he looked at the screen, thinking, this is the first time I've ever seen something like that, pretty interesting actually. What's wrong, Naruto? Kakashi inquired, observing the blonde's irritation. The others heard Naruto's statement and turned to look at the screen. Out of everyone here, those two had to fight each other. He complained, pointing to the screen. Yamanaka Ino vs Haruno Sakura. Sakura became irritated when he complained, God, this is going to suck. What is the intended meaning of that? She insisted, but Naruto disregarded her. Sakura stomped toward the arena, huffing in annoyance. As the two fought, Naruto looked on indifferently, as if neither girl had taken their training seriously since graduating from the academy. In addition, he had to listen to them repeatedly talk about how they wouldn't let the other win Sasuke's heart. However, Ino's ability to use her hair as a trap and then use her Shintenshin no Jutsu mind transfer technique to force Sakura to forfeit the match gave the impression that she took her training a little more seriously than Sakura. I called it. Really, what happened to Naruto? This was not the blonde-haired knucklehead he knew before the exams began. I knew it would suck, Naruto muttered to himself, but Kakashi heard it and scowled. Temari vs Tenten. This was obviously a one-sided battle in Naruto's mind, and while he was impressed by Tenten's weaponry, it was all for nothing, as Temari was a wind user who used that element to deflect all of Tenten's weapons. The match ended when Temari pulled out her giant fan and swung it, creating a huge whirlwind that sent Tenten flying, and when he added the wind-caught weapons cutting her, Naruto could tell that she would be sore for a while. He scowled as he saw Temari heedlessly toss Tenten's unconscious form. Tenten was a gifted kunoichi who battled valiantly and didn't deserve such disrespect. Fortunately, her teammate Rock Lee caught her and dragged her back to the balcony. He had to acknowledge that these Tsunagenin were talented. Shikamaru Nara vs Kintsuchi. Shikamaru walked languidly to the field while complaining that he had to fight a girl. If Naruto were to be honest with himself, he believed that Shikamaru would lose because, from what he remembered, Shikamaru was always lazy and unmotivated. However, it turned out that Shikamaru was much smarter than Naruto gave him credit for, as the lazy Konoha mostly played defense, allowing his opponent to become overconfident. She didn't realize that Shikamaru was subtly manipulating her until she was backed up close to the wall, and then he managed to trap her in his shadow. After exchanging words, they played a game of shuriken, and Shikamaru leaned back. The only issue was that only one of them was too close to the wall, so Kin followed his example, and, thanks to his shadow, Kin did the same. Naruto was impressed and thought, I always thought that Shikamaru was just a lazy ass, but he's a lot smarter than he looks. Shirayuki concurred, saying, yeah, I suppose this is one of those instances of not judging a book by its cover. Naruto nodded before turning to face the screen, and he couldn't help but smile. Inuzuka Kiba vs Uzumaki. Naruto. Oh my god, it's almost time, Naruto exclaimed in his head. As Naruto headed to the arena, Shirayuki remarked, Good luck, Naruto-kun. It looks like it's your time to shine. Akamaru, it appears that we were fortunate. Kiba smiled confidently and said, face the dead last, talk about an easy win. His loyal companion barked in agreement. I've changed since before, Kiba. As he put his hand on the hilt of his sword but did not draw it, Naruto said, get ready because I'm going to kick your ass. Kiba couldn't help but laugh at this. In an attempt to agitate Naruto, he taunted, that's some big talk from someone who couldn't even make a simple bunshin. However, when he saw Naruto's composed expression, he scowled and shrugged it off before assuming a stance. Start, Hayate yelled as the game began. Before he could move, Kiba was startled to see Naruto standing directly in front of him. His eyes widened as he saw his opponent draw his sword, and he smirked as he ducked to avoid the incoming slash, only to have it erased when he was kneed in the face. He staggered a little and glared at Naruto before going pale when he felt steel against his neck. Naruto gently pressed his sword against Kiba's neck and commanded, surrender. It all happened so quickly that Kiba hardly blinked before he found himself holding a sword at his throat. What the hell? Kiba thought in shock, never in a million years imagining Naruto could do this. Naruto repeated, I said surrender. However, he winced in agony when he felt a bite on his wrist. When Akamaru saw that his master was in danger, he lunged at the arm that held the Zanpakuto and choked him. Kiba immediately leapt back and launched several shuriken as Akamaru retreated. As he used his Zanpakuto to block the incoming shuriken, Naruto realized that he had forgotten about Akamaru and mentally cursed, but the attack was effective and gave Kiba enough time to plan his attack. The all-fours technique, or Shikyaku no Jutsu. He uttered those words as he fell to his knees and rushed toward Naruto. Naruto was unprepared for the elbow to the gut that sent him flying into the wall because he had just finished deflecting the shuriken. Hey, he'll be dead after just one blow. He was a loser, I knew that, Kiba exulted, believing he had already received one. After reading the files on Naruto, Kurenai said, I'll admit that he surprised me in the beginning but in the end he wasn't good enough. Although she was taken aback by Naruto's first move, she believed it was the result of Kiba's arrogance. I expected this to occur. As she observed them, Ino remarked, Naruto could never defeat Kiba. To get his teammates' attention, Shikamaru said, I wouldn't be so sure. Shikamaru, what do you mean? Choji questioned his closest friend. He took on the Auto Genin during the second exam. Did you two forget about that? It's troublesome. They had totally forgotten how Naruto took them on alone, so they widened their eyes when he said that. The match is called by Proctor.san. When he heard Akamaru barking, Kiba scowled and turned to face his friend before turning back to face Naruto. His eyes widened as the dust from Naruto's impact cleared and Naruto himself stood up. He's not getting up after that one, Kiba said, but Hayate remained silent. Kiba just scoffed as he recovered from his shock. Nice attack, but if that's the best you can do then you have no chance of beating me. Kiba pulled a military ration pill out of his pocket and said, eat up Akamaru. The little dog ate the pill, and Naruto saw his once white fur turn red. That's some pretty big talk coming from you loser, but if you want me to do my best then here it is. I sense that the dog's energy has increased, Naruto.kun. Would you like to use my Shikai? Shirayuki inquired, but Naruto gave a mental shake of his head. He replied, receiving a nod from the Zanpakuto spirit, as much as I want to show off your abilities, I want to keep it a secret and use it as a trump card for as long as I can. The beast human clone, Jujin Bushin, Kiba said as a cloud of smoke consumed Akamaru. Once the smoke cleared it revealed an exact copy of Kiba. You're going down Naruto. Naruto raised his arm and glared at the two Kibas, saying, okay, I've had enough of your mouth and I've had enough of being underestimated. Bakudo number 4. Heinawa, crawling rope. Before he threw it at one of the Kibas, everyone watched as a strange yellow energy encircled Naruto's hand. The energy took the shape of a rope and tangled itself around one of the shocked Kibas, making an unsuccessful attempt to free himself. Get out of the way now. Hado number 1. Show, thrust, Naruto pointed his finger at his imprisoned opponent and mustered up enough energy before letting it loose. The trapped Kiba was struck by a powerful force that sent it reeling back a few feet before striking the ground on impact. Akamaru. The still-standing Kiba shouted revealing that Akamaru was the one on the receiving end of Naruto's attacks. Kiba looked at the still disguised Akamaru who was struggling to get up. The strange yellow rope thing was proving to be an obstacle before growling at Naruto. What did you do to him? What was it I did? Given that I will ultimately prevail, why should I explain what I did to my opponent? Naruto shrugged as he spoke. We'll investigate that, tunneling Fang, or Suga. As he charged at Naruto, Kiba yelled, jumped into the air, and started spinning so fast that he looked like a drill. Instead of displaying any signs of concern, Naruto raised his hand idly. A pale blue sphere materialized in front of Naruto's extended hand as he uttered the words, Bakudo number 8. Seiki, repulse. As Kiba's drill-like form approached, Naruto remained motionless. Everyone expected the attack to blow him back, but when he made contact with the odd blue orb in Naruto's hand, Kiba was pushed away as though struck by a powerful force and bounced off the ground. Is that all? As he watched Kiba stand up on wobbly legs, Naruto asked, bored. Kakashi. Sensei, what is that? Sakura inquired, having never seen anything like that before. Surprising her, Kakashi said, I don't know. Naruto has been using some interesting techniques but I've never heard of them before. Neji was a few feet away, watching the match with a frown of contemplation, his Byakugan activated to study Naruto's techniques because he might be an opponent in the future, but he was perplexed by what he saw. Initially, he wasn't going to pay attention to this match because he had only heard negative things about Naruto and never thought of him as a threat, but that wasn't the case right now. Lee noticed his teammate's perplexity and inquired, is there a problem, Neji-kun? There's something about these techniques he's using, Neji said after a pause. To get the other people's attention, he clarified, or more specifically, there's something wrong with his chakra. What are you saying? Guy asked curiously, and for the first time, Neji's normally calm, assured expression gave way to one of perplexity. He shocked them by saying, it's almost like he doesn't have chakra. You're saying that he lacks chakra? What about the strange maneuvers he has been employing? Without chakra, how is he able to do those things? Neji shook his head in response to Ino's loud question. I mentioned that it seems as though he lacks chakra. Something is different. I'm not sure if it's something else entirely or if it's just a special quality of his chakra. He clarified, I can't really explain it because I've never seen anything like it before. Glancing back at Naruto, Kakashi scowled and said, Naruto, just what were you up to during those 10 days? How on earth was that? How could he have so much trouble against the dead last? Kiba asked in exasperation. As I previously stated, I don't need to describe my methods to you. In addition, Naruto stated bluntly, I think it's about time I end this. Who are you, in your opinion? Give up acting like you've already won. Kiba yelled angrily, but Naruto disregarded him. Oh Lord! All creation, flutter of wings, mask of flesh and blood, you who are called man, pandemonium and fire, the sea barrier roaring, march south. The audience appeared perplexed, unsure of what he was saying, as he chanted. The all-fours technique, or Shikyaku no Jutsu. Kiba yelled as he charged at Naruto's high speed, but it was a mistake because Naruto launched his attack as soon as he got close enough, and the Inuzuka was unable to avoid him. As a red orb of energy materialized in his hand, he said, Hado number 31. Shakuho, red fire cannon. He aimed and launched the attack, striking Kiba square in the chest and sending him flying. The impact was so hot that it burned his jacket completely off, revealing numerous burn marks on Kiba. Snapping his fingers, Naruto declared, he received that attack at point-blank range, there's no way he can continue. The strange rope of energy that had imprisoned Akamaru vanished, and the white dog instantly sprinted to his master's prone form. Kiba was not getting up anytime soon, as Hayate could see by looking at him. Winner, Uzumaki Naruto. As he returned to the stands, he mentally heard Shirayuki say, congratulations on the win, Naruto-kun. He apologized, saying, thanks, sorry that I didn't really use you, but Shirayuki simply shrugged it off. She reassured him, it's okay. I know you want to hide some things for another day. She gave him a little giggle when he said, thanks, but don't worry, pretty soon you and I will kick some major ass together. I'm excited about it. Following their brief exchange, he went back to his balcony seat and leaned against the wall, waiting for the next match without indicating whether he was aware of the looks he was getting from those around him. Kakashi broke the ice. Well Naruto, that was quite a match, He grinned broadly. The only thing Naruto said was, "Thanks. So, would you mind explaining your new moves?" The others leaned in curiously, and Kakashi asked in an attempt to learn more. Naruto just swore at them to take responsibility for their actions, saying, "No, I'm good." "Why not use Baka?" Sakura said, irritated. Something happened to her teammate since the exams started, and she did not like his new attitude. "Not like I'm going to explain anything to them willingly," Naruto said, adding, "I'd rather not explain my skills in front of the competition. They never gave a damn about me before, but now that I actually have some strength their interest suddenly?" He mentally sneered. Despite his curiosity, Kakashi sighed and let the matter drop, saying, "I suppose that makes sense." The others turned to the screen after realizing they would not learn anything. Hyuga Neji vs Hyuga Hinata. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this matchup because, based on his recollection of Hinata, he thought she was a shy girl who was always flushing uncontrollably for reasons he couldn't understand, and Neji, who he didn't know personally, seemed conceited based on the way he carried himself. He scowled as he watched the next two fighters. Neji appeared confident, judging by the patronizing smirk on his face, while Hinata appeared to be on the verge of fainting from anxiety. He waited until she passed him on her way down to the arena, but he never really engaged with the girl, and when he did, she was always friendly, so he decided to give her more confidence. He whispered, "Hinata, good luck. Kick his ass." Hinata gave him a startled look, but she also smiled slightly and nodded in gratitude. Kurenai, who was well aware of the girl's crush on the unaware blonde, also grinned at this brief exchange. Neji merely sneered at Hinata, who felt a little encouraged by Naruto's few words and put on her best game face as the two genin faced each other, waiting for the signal to begin. Despite her best efforts, Hinata was outmatched by Neji, who was in control from the start. He verbally attacked her, calling her a failure and a disappointment to the Hyuga clan, which seemed to set her off, but she managed to defend herself and fight back. He then gave her the impression that she was winning with her Juken strike, but in reality, Neji had been depriving her of her Tenketsu points from the start, rendering her attacks pointless. Nevertheless, Hinata continued to fight until Neji delivered a Juken strike to her chest. But what really triggered Neji was when Hinata managed to stand again and looked at the older Hyuga with sympathy, saying that she truly felt sorry for him because he was suffering from the clan. Neji's eyes flashed with rage as he charged at her, intending to kill her, but was stopped by several Konoha Junin before he could strike her. After Neji was proclaimed the winner, Hinata fell to the ground with serious injuries, and the medics had to come quickly to take her to the infirmary. Naruto, who was an orphan and wanted nothing more than family, was furious at Neji for treating Hinata that way. He thought angrily, "What an asshole, how could he do that to her?" In an attempt to calm him, Shirayuki said, "Calm down, Naruto-kun. Don't let your anger get the better of you, you wouldn't want to do anything rash." Naruto took a deep breath and let it out, which helped to calm him down a little. He was extremely grateful that Shirayuki was now there to support him when he needed it. "I'm grateful," he said. Before the screen flashed and the next two fighters were shown, she said, "Anytime." Rock Lee vs Gaara. Naruto's attention was now drawn to this match. Naruto said, "Shirayuki-chan, please pay attention to this match. I don't want to miss anything." "All right. But is there a specific rationale?" she inquired inquisitively. "According to Naruto, I had a quick meeting with him prior to the start of the exams, and he is interested in fighting me. I haven't seen him fight before, but he's a strong one." "Very well," Shirayuki remarked before turning to face Naruto and examining the match. Naruto had to admit that he was impressed by the match between Gaara's control over sand and Lee's high level of taijutsu. However, despite his speed, Lee was unable to land a hit that could penetrate Gaara's defensive sand wall. Taking things a step further, Lee took off the ankle weights he was wearing, and Naruto's eyes widened comically when he saw the weights create large craters when they struck the ground. With his newfound speed, he was able to get past Gaara's sand and land a few solid hits, but Gaara revealed another trick. He wore a shell of sand that served as a second defense, rendering Lee's attacks ineffective. As Naruto watched Lee run in a circle around Gaara, gaining speed, he thought, "That sand of his is pretty annoying." Lee chose to charge at Gaara, kicking him several times into the air before wrapping Gaara in his bandages and using the Omat Renge, front lotus, to drive him into the ground. After a while, Lee got his second wind and started to speed up, avoiding Gaara's attacks, and then he opened 3 more gates: the Gate of Healing, the Gate of Life, and the Gate of Pain. Lee's skin turned red and he looked like his body was about to burst, and he took off like a rocket at Gaara, who was unable to defend against Lee's supersonic speed. Lee thought he had won, but was surprised to see that it was actually a sand shell of him that he had driven into the ground instead, a sand shell of him. As Naruto watched this match go on, he thought, damn, his strength just skyrocketed. When the sand armor proved useless and Gaara experienced excruciating pain for the first time in his life, Lee decided to put an end to the situation and opened the 5th gate, the Gate of Limit. He disappeared and then reappeared in front of Gaara, sending him flying toward the ground before being abruptly jerked back to a charging Lee. Lee gritted his teeth and struck Gaara with a Urarenge, Reverse Lotus, causing Gaara to hit the ground hard and create a huge dust cloud. When the dust cleared, everyone was shocked to see Gaara lying on the ground, his sand armor showing several cracks. It turned out that he had turned the guard on his back into sand and used it to cushion the fall. Gaara appeared exhausted, but he raised his hand as he commanded his sand, and Naruto couldn't help but wince when he heard Lee's scream of pain as the sand crushed his left arm and leg. He sent another wave of sand to finish him, but fortunately Guy appeared between them and stopped the attack. After Gaara was crowned the winner, he returned all the sand to his guard and walked towards the balcony, while Lee was sent to the infirmary. After the match, Naruto had a slightly uneasy thought. I knew Gaara was strong, but shit, is he really just a genin? Shirayuki concurred, saying, he will be a tough opponent in these exams. Despite Choji's best efforts, he was easily defeated by Dosu, who used his sound jutsu to knock out the Akamichi in the final match between the remaining Auto Genin. Now that the matches were over, the Hokage got up from his chair and commanded the victorious genin to line up in the arena, pausing to inspect them before he spoke. I want to start by congratulating everyone who has advanced. I'll now go over the last exam phase, which is scheduled for 1 month from now. As Anko moved forward carrying a box, Sarutobi remarked, this will give you the opportunity to learn a new trick or two. Okay. You will all select a number from this box. The final stage will be decided by the number you receive, she declared, and the genin approached her individually to obtain their numbers. I have number 8, Dosu said, glancing at the piece of paper. According to Naruto, number 1. According to Tamari, I got 7. Kankuro just said, 5. Gaara's voice was monotone as she said, 3. Ino stated, I'm number 10. Shikamaru muttered something annoying in a bored tone before saying, I gave 8. Neji smirked and remarked, I have 2. Shino declared, I have received the number 6. As he jotted down who had what number on a clipboard, Ibiki muttered, which leaves the 4th sport for Uchiha Sasuke. Ibiki showed the genin the clipboard, and Sarutobi remarked, now that we have your numbers, the matches for the final stage have been step. Hyuga Neji vs Uzumaki Naruto, Gaara vs Sasuke Uchiha. Shino Aburame vs Kankuro Nara, Shikamaru vs Tamari. Kinuta Dosu vs Yamanaka Ino. Naruto looked at Neji, who was giving him a patronizing look, after he realized who his opponent was. The preliminary round is officially over now that you are familiar with your opponents. Sarutobi declared, use the next month to get ready for your next matches. As he left, Naruto thought, time to find Urahara Sensei. I need to up my training. He had a month to get ready, and he wasn't going to waste any more time.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.